Okay, looks like I can run.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:36 on August 28th, 2019.
This meeting has been posted and is being video recorded. Committeewoman Boniface.
Here.
Committeeman Lavasi.
Here.
Committeeman Vajnik.
Here.
Committeeman Warren is absent. Mayor Kastner.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence for two members of our community who passed away over the last month, Charles Borelli and Nicholas Barra. These gentlemen were both active in our community in many ways, and they will be dearly missed. Thank you. Okay, any changes to the agenda?
Yes,
Okay.
I'd like to pull 165 through 170 off. We have not seen any of these, they were just on the agenda, so I'd like to pull off the consent until somebody explains all of this.
Do we have enough?
Right.
Do we have explanation of all?
We have not,
Yes,
um,
individually. Again, we sent by heart.
165 as well?
65 through 70, right?
yes,
Okay, well, we can explain 165
I mean, I have them all.
without the resolutions in front of us, which we could get to, but these are probably updates to the master plan and the redevelopment zones.
That we did the last meeting, and they were tied the whole thing together. You know, some housekeeping issues. But again, I have them. If you all want to do it.
Can we pull 177 off so we can just do a brief discussion?
Okay. All right, any other changes?
no.
Okay. Okay, okay, so we are pulling also Bureau of Fire Code Enforcement salary increase off, as well as EMS update. Both of those will be discussed at a later meeting. Okay. With those amendments, can I have a motion to approve the agenda? I'll make a motion. Okay, do we have a second?
A second.
Okay. Roll call.
Committeewoman Boniface.
Yes,
Committeeman Lavasi.
Yes.
Committeeman Vajnik.
Yes.
Mayor Kastner.
Yes. Okay. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the public meeting held July 24th, 2019?
I'll make that motion.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Committeewoman Boniface.
Yes.
Committeeman Lavasi.
Yes.
Committeeman Vajnik.
Yes.
Mayor Kastner.
Yes. Okay, so before we open to the public, which is the next item on the list, just a little bit of housekeeping. We will be discussing a number of topics tonight that may be emotional for some people, not only in the audience, but up here on the dais. So with respect for other members of the community, please allow for them to discuss their concerns and questions and address them to the township committee or vice versa. And remember that we all have the right to express your opinions and concerns. So please be respectful of that. And we don't want any outbursts or conversations between the audience members and the members of the dais as well. So if we can keep that to a minimum or to an absolute zero, that would be great. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Okay, so can I have a motion to open to the public for agenda items? Motion. Okay.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. So we are open to the public, so please step forward, state your name and address and your concern as it's related to the agenda tonight.
Good evening, Darrell DeMott, from Chestnut Street. I have one question first. Why are we making a agenda and then removing it at the night after? Was there no time for the township committee to discuss these items and have them put on there?
Are you referring to the two that we removed from?
Several, yes, including also the one that pertains to park convention. So I've made my schedule around coming to this because it's on the agenda and it's canceled the night of, and it says in the asterisk that the township committee has already said that they were going to discuss these items.
That was my conversation with Mr. Davidson a second ago. So Mr. Davidson indicated that you weren't ready to proceed.
Well, I wasn't correct. Mr. Tomato went on vacation, I went on vacation. Additional questions that was asked by the township committee that we were unable to address. And I did speak to Mr. Tomato about that.
So that's why it was pulled off the agenda.
Okay, so I accept your answer, but to rebut that, there is nothing to discuss anymore. I think we already asked for the additional amount for the fire inspectors. It was brought up, passed. Ironically, it was pulled. And now we're just talking about this for months and months. So I'm just wondering, what is it that I have to do to give you the information that you need from Mr. Davidson? Because apparently it's unclear on Mr. Davidson's end also,
So,
as to what you need.
okay, so basically what happened here is that I had a conversation prior to the meeting here. What I'm hoping to do is that, not next week, but the following week, that we'll be able to sit down and get this resolved in the September 11th meeting.
No, I appreciate that, but what is it exactly? I mean, we can say it out loud. I think, what is it
So
exactly?
that's what I need to get clarified. I want to get everything clarified so we have clear messages what we need to discuss.
So can I ask the chair if he could define exactly what you're looking for, provide that to Mr. Davidson so that a formidable conversation can take place instead of him wondering what it is that you want or somebody else?
What is my concern?
Anybody's concerned because I've already provided exactly what's needed. It's up to you to make a decision as a group.
Right.
So I don't know what it is that I still need to meet with Mr. Davidson, which we weren't able to do.
I am comfortable with the discussion that we had the last time, which identified the salaries that we were anticipating as proposed for the future. I just, right before the meeting, I just had a conversation with the administrator and he said it wasn't ready to go. So until we answer those questions, he will.
One of the issues pertain to the fact, the number of hours, only because of the fact that now with the fire prevention is not doing property maintenance and what kind of, how that would reflect off of the additional hours, if my understanding is correct. If I'm incorrect, please tell me correctly.
So, do you think we'll have the full proposal ready to go for next meeting?
I absolutely want to have it done.
Well, I guess just to make it clear, the amount of hours it takes to get the job done is not something that you set. That's what I do as the supervisor of the department. And that's also based on what you can afford. As far as I'm concerned, I bring in over $70,000 into this bureau, I being the department head. You've never spent that much money. So the amount of hours should not be a reflection of what needs to get done when the town actually has a surplus left over. So I don't know why there's a question of the hours. And certainly the hours are going to be lower than it was when we were doing two jobs. So
I certainly understand that. I do not have a question about the hours. So
I would just ask that if there's any questions that you can give to Mr. Davidson so he can ask and I can answer, instead of us going back and forth for months.
Are you addressing me as the chair of this
As the
meeting?
chair, yes,
Okay.
so that you can ask the rest of the folks.
I will make sure that all questions
That's what I'm asking.
put into a written form, and they will be forwarded to Mr. Davidson and to you through Mr. Davidson, so you can have the conversation, so we can answer all the questions that are still pending. And then we can proceed with this for the next meeting.
Okay, I have one last question.
Sure.
When will I be able to be put back on the agenda so that I can continue to answer and address the questions from the June meeting?
Would you-
And refute the things that were said?
Would you like to be on the next work session, which will be
I would,
September 11th?
I would.
Okay.
And I would just ask that, just like you started off this meeting, that same meeting gets carried on the same way with due respect to me.
Well, we've only made it about 5 minutes into this meeting, so we'll see how it goes.
It's okay.
Absolutely, I have
I'm
the
just
same
asking for the same
expectation.
thing, because I've done nothing but show the respect, I would expect that back.
Yes, and I know how the last meeting ended, so certainly we'll attempt to comply.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Ed Quinn, 19 Peak Street. I have a question. I was driving by State Street and I noticed I think a large green sign on the Boy Scout sign that says "Welcome to Rochelle Park." Now that was an Eagle project done by John Zorbridge in '94, if I remember. So John got his Eagle in '94, so he probably did it in '93. And the Boy Scouts have maintained that sign for the last 25 years. We mowed the lawn there, we stained it, and the people that have their name on the sign paid the boy to fund it, to build the sign. And now there's a sign out. I'm assuming the town put the sign on the sign. I don't know that for a fact. I don't know who put this green sign on. And it says that we support handicapped children or something. I can't remember what it says. But I would assume the town supports all children in the town, no matter what their affliction is. So I'm kind of angry about somebody sticking a sign on the Boy Scout sign without even asking somebody's permission. They just stuck it on. It looks terrible. I'm really angry. Obviously, you can tell from my voice. I don't think what you've done is correct. Now, I don't know if the town did it or not, or if some organization did it, but I would like at least to straighten it out. If we support whoever is on that sign, then they should put their own sign up or put a stand on it. I don't have a problem with that. But we had to go to Ramada to get permission to do that. We went to the Garden State people. We went to the Bergen County people, the freeholders, to get permission. And for somebody to stick a sign up without even asking permission to do that, it annoys me. So would you find out,
So,
Mayor,
yeah,
that
absolutely. The signs, I believe there were 2 that were placed.
I know there are other signs
Township.
also,
There's
and they belong to the
one
town,
on
I
Rochelle
believe.
Ave by Essex Street,
I saw it.
and the scout sign, the Welcome to Rochelle Park by the Ramada. They are, for my opinion, those are street signs. They are metal. They are meant to be put on a post at the side of the road. I would like to see them removed and placed on a post at the side of the road, like
I
we
don't have a
should.
problem. I don't even have a problem if somebody asks permission to do that, Michael.
I think it's a different type of sign, and
Doesn't belong on that sign.
well, so since has been brought up, and even though this is not an agenda item,
And I talked often about coming up and
yes.
talking about it, so.
so what we'll do is, Mr. Davidson, can we have those put onto posts?
You talking about the stigma-free sign?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think that's what
all right,
they're about this big,
yeah.
but it's
Stigma-free.
just tacked on the side
That's
of
not handicapped kids.
terrible appearance. I mean, we want the town to look good. We don't want it to look a little shabby. That's my opinion.
I
Those
think,
tactile signs, like welcome to the town.
right, we can put
We
it
don't
right.
have those. We don't really have those on
I
our.
mean, we can put it, the type of sign that it is meant to be on one of the posts. So I'm going to ask the administrator, if there's no objection from the committee here, to move those signs to still be existing and still be displayed, but put them onto a street type sign that you post that are on the street. And if it had, I know if we have the welcome to Rochelle Park in the middle, they should be right below them. Below those. Is there any objection to changing the location of those signs? Okay. All right. So
You want the signs down now? Tomorrow?
no, as long as they
There's
get
no rush, don't get me wrong, but
No. Let's find a location, put a post in the ground, make sure that they're visible, and I don't think we need to take them down immediately. Let's make sure that they get on one of those other locations.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, got it down.
thank you, Mike. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay, any other member of the public?
Diane Vanessa, 40 Cars. I have a question about 120 Person Street. I don't know who you assign, is it the housing inspector or who is supposed to be keeping an eye on what's going on out there? So I guess that's my first question. Who would be checking it out, looking at it, or was there a sign? I don't know if it's our current engineer or the original engineer or who.
Is there a concern that you have
Well,
that,
several.
okay,
But besides the fact that the piles of dirt are, trees on, a major concern is when they ripped up the asphalt, and I remember, to be honest, I was at that planning meeting when they said they weren't gonna do that.
yes.
On the other side, there is a lot of ponding, there's a lot of mosquitoes. I mean, what you hear now in the news is the mosquitoes are carrying all kinds of other diseases, et cetera. In fact, it was on the news tonight, and it's like mosquito heaven there now. And when you drive up Plaza Way, because that's how you're getting detoured because of State Street, it looks horrific, and that's anybody driving past your town. In addition to that, the pond is drying out because whatever they're doing or not doing. So I'm just curious, who looks into this, who makes them responsible?
So, the building department, of course, is overseeing that project. Construction code official would be responsible for supervising the carrying out of any type of agreements from the planning board, zoning board, or even the township committee if it's a redevelopment, issue. So they should be supervising that. I believe they were issued a stop work order by the township because they didn't have the proper permitting, if I am correct.
Is that recently or?
That was back months ago.
June, right? Okay. So
Right.
at what point, is it something that we're waiting for them to do so they can start again?
I
Or
think the issue is the redevelopment.
If I may, there's a couple of elements or components to this, one of which is a developer's agreement for the commercial phase of the site, the cube, the self-storage. And that has been in discussion and negotiation between the professionals on behalf of the town and the developer. It was finalized last week, finally. It was approved by the planning board last week, signed by the planning board and signed by the developer yesterday or today. On tonight's agenda, we have the final approval, so the township, or the mayor can sign it on behalf of the township. So that's going to clear the way for work to proceed. So it's a,
will that
I know it looks
include
like-
the way of all the stuff that they weren't going to take down that they did,
Right.
like the
Yes.
trees and stuff?
it's all covered in that agreement. And then there's a second phase of the agreements between the town and the developer, which is the redevelopment agreement, which is going to address primarily the next phase of the project, the residential phase and so forth. It's a complex project and it took a long time. A lot of engineering had to go into it even after the
But I
approvals.
have to say, Joe, at the meeting when I don't know what the latest, their latest agreement or disagreement was, but at the meeting when they presented it, I happened to be at that meeting with a lot of other residents. They stated several times that the only thing they were asking permission for was the storage unit, and they were not asking permission for anything else, and they were not going to touch anything else. Because at the time, they said they didn't know if they were the ones who were going to do the work, or they were going to lease it or sell it, or, they had all different options. And they repeatedly said, no other work would be done except for the storage unit.
At that time, that was probably an accurate statement, because that was the very beginning. The first thing that was approved was the self-storage. I wasn't at those meetings.
No, I
mean,
understand, but what I'm saying is, so they get permission to do that, and then, oh, well, we changed our mind and we're gonna rip up the whole thing and it's okay? I mean, that just seems
No,
kind of like,
there's, the next phase that they were approved for is the overall project with the residential, and then that's another.
oh, so they're gonna do the whole thing themselves,
That's,
supposedly.
that's the plan supposedly. I mean, they could change, they could sell the project if they.
That's what they said they were gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, that, we have no real control over that, but just so you know, what was approved in the meeting that you're probably referring to was the original commercial application for the cube, so.
Right.
And that's finally getting underway. Hopefully, tonight's action will go through and they can proceed, so.
So they
It
can't
should
use them
be-
anyway.
Yeah, it should really move more rapidly now, and that's why, I know it's an eyesore, I know the pond has to be maintained, the debris that's over there has to be cleaned up, that's all been part of the discussions with them, so, and hopefully it starts to move a little more
Are
quickly
there
now.
penalties that if they don't start doing this, it's by a certain date that, you know, what has become an eyesore, they will, you know, if they don't rectify it, is what I'm saying.
Only if there are code violations that continue, then the property maintenance officer can issue summonses. But
Well, giant pile of dirt.
But they, just so you know, they are just as anxious to get it moving, probably more anxious than we are to see it moving. It's just, there are a lot of components, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that have to be done.
Hopefully they'll start.
And hopefully, and they want to start too, it doesn't do them any good to let it sit there. They have a lot of money tied up in it already, so.
Mr. Vitolo, also, I believe that the construction official spoke to the developer yesterday about starting to clean up some of the property, at least in the right-of-way area.
Yes.
He was here today, and I had the same conversation with him as well, and he promised that he would at least take care of, you know, doing hedges out here and, you know, mowing everything needs to be done. But anything inside the fence, you know, that's a whole different issue.
I can tell you about the hedges of the lease.
No, I understand it, but the whole point of the matter is that.
I mean, no, actually, how you-
Have no control over that. Okay.
But they also have a representative here, I'm going to point him out so that we attacks him, but I'm sure he'll bring back that message that at pretty much every meeting, somebody comments on the condition of that site. We brought it up with them repeatedly, and I'm sure they're going to address it, but they couldn't do a lot until the agreement was finalized and signed, and we finally got to that point, so I think.
So hopefully they'll
Yeah,
start.
you should see some movement there.
And just on the issue with the pond, just on the issue with the pond, the reason why it's losing water is that I believe the main component of keeping that filled was that the runoff from the parking lot was going into there as a retention basin. So if it's percolating into the ground, that is, it's not going to make it into.
Oh, yeah, but that's a
so-
concern that EDF had brought up when they started
And
building.
the other issue, quite honestly, there, reference to the pond, is that right now, there's no
electric.
water access, and there's no electric, because actually the self-filling, okay? It basically works just like a toilet did, quite frankly. And, but what happened was, once the electric was pulled and then the water was shut down, there's,
But they can't run the
there can't
area.
get any water in there.
So those issues, I hope to be, they'll be addressed as soon as the project gets underway.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else from the public?
Shouldn't happen with West Older Street. We'll continue with 120. Apparently, there's parcels on this piece of property. And parcel, say, number 1, the storage area, was given permission to do what?
To construct a storage facility, a building on the
Okay.
back, rear right portion.
Who was given permission to demolish that existing building that was there?
That was given through.
Yeah,
demo permit.
they had a demolition permit
They had
for
demolition.
that, yeah.
The demolition permit allow them to grind it all up and make mounds and elevate ground level?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that a demolition permit was issued. I think that all work was, and Bob maybe can, fill in some gaps, but I think when that particular issue went beyond the scope of what they were given permission to do, and that's why they were stopped.
Yeah,
That's pretty
I
much.
believe that. Again, I don't want to be held to,
Yeah,
to it, because I really don't want to say 100% that's the case, but I do know that they were stopped, and that's really what I'm saying.
They had, you're right across the street from the area. If they dug up asphalt and everything, I'm sure you would have heard it done. And couldn't someone go there and stop it right then and there? Or give them a fine for doing such a thing? No, they just continued. And then they said that I got, the information I'm getting from the building inspector and everything, is that the DEP gave permission to raise it for a 100-year flood for where the storage area was supposed to be. Well, now it's getting bigger and higher, and it's expanding out to where apparently the retail is supposed to be, or the restaurant or whatever it's supposed to be there. So I don't think anybody's even watching this. Now, I was under the impression that Joe was the engineer for this parcel, correct? Is he still the engineer, or did Boswell Engineering take over?
Mr. Job handled the cube, the self-storage part of it. And he continued that up until now, and will continue, I think, until that work is done on that site. And that's the end of his
So
responsibility.
he is the engineer for the storage area only,
That's my understanding, yeah.
and then from there on, it will be Boswell?
Correct.
Okay. Now, a very serious problem for anybody who's in a flood zone. About a month ago, we had one heavy rainstorm. Anybody looked on the river gauge, we went beyond action. We went into minor flooding on the meter in Lodi. Now we have hurricanes coming up the East Coast, backing up, coming all over. If we ever have a hurricane and it goes into major flooding, all that gravel, asphalt and everything is going to be all over the place. Everything will be clogged and everything.
Contaminated.
Well, yeah, contaminated and everything else.
Yeah.
Bad enough with one of the floods, we had the oil from the oil tanks that no one knew were here until they came up. We don't want to go through cleaning up something that should have been looked at much better before you did all this, I think. No one's following anything through. I know it's your responsibility, you want jobs and everything. So you do have an administrator who was supposed to ask the questions and report back to you. He's supposed to be checking on what's going on and reporting to you people. You have a question, you're going to ask the administrator to get answers for you. I don't see that cooperation amongst any of you. Okay, that's my 120 comment. Now, also on the agenda, you have, let me see here. You had the audit. On the audit, you have something about part-time people joining the pension DA something that allows anybody with 20 hours, I believe, to join the pension. Is that self-supported by the employee? And does the town match any of that pension contribution?
Will you be able to answer that when you come up?
It's the deferred compensation retirement program. The town statutory will contribute 5%. The employee will contribute 5%, 5.5%.
And that's for how many hours work part-time?
20 or greater, or a threshold value, and don't quote me, $6,500 went up this year.
So that the added expense won't be there. Also on the audit report, the 20,000.
Do you have other, is this, if we're gonna have him
Oh,
come
you
up?
want me to wait for that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll make sure that you are called up when we
Okay.
have the report. You can answer questions according to that, right? Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else for the open public? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to close?
Second.
Okay, roll call?
Committeewoman Boniface,
Yes.
Committeeman Vassie,
Yes.
Committeeman Vajnik,
Yes.
Mayor Casper.
Yes. Okay, so, engineers report. Mike Kelly from Boswell Engineering. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Township Committee. I have our written status report dated August 26th. Can everybody hear me okay? So the first item on our report is RP 101, that's the Rochelle Ave and Railroad Ave intersection project. I need to follow up with the county. We're waiting for a signage and striping plan from them, and then we expect the design to be complete within 2 weeks of that. So I'm going to the next item is ROP 102, that's the Sprout Brook Stream Cleaning and Outfall Stabilization Project. We expect permits to be submitted to EP by October 1st, 2019. For the for ROP 105, that's the Bergen County Road Resurfacing Project. That's resurfacing of West Passaic Street. Obviously, everybody knows that it's been milled. We expected in that, but I'm just reporting on that. We very, very well. For ROP 106, that's the sanitary sewer interceptor relining project. That work's been completed. We're just waiting on the sewer video from the contractor, and then we'll close it out. Prior to school starting, it's expected to be striped on Tuesday, and then the project came out really good. The curve. That's it.
Just, could you hold for a quick question? Sure. Are there any quick questions for the engineer?
Yes.
Okay.
Not really a question. We all received a letter from the Department of Transportation in regards to applications that were rejected for impact.
Yes.
And I just wanted to know if you had any knowledge of it, or is there any projects that we have in town that might fit in there?
I don't know if you have any projects that would really apply to that. It's a very competitive grant. I think they have, once they, I think last year they awarded 30 projects. They awarded one in Richfield Park, which I handle. It was the only one that was awarded in Bergen County, and they got about $450,000. Like I said, it's a very competitive grant. It's really geared towards if you have warehouses that were like a truck port, where you have goods brought into the warehouse, then it's changed, put on different trucks, just warehousing. So if you had something like that on a municipal road, to a port or two modes of transportation, I don't think we really have that in Rochelle Park. I can review that for the administration. But
You want any other member of the?
Oh, hi, Walter Johnson, 54 Rochelle Avenue. Just wanted to mention with the Sprouts Brook cleaning thing. I saw this about 3 weeks ago, about 4 or 5 backyards upstream of Chestnut. A tree had fallen into the Sprouts Brook, about 8 to 10-inch diameter, tree or half a tree. Just wanted to let you know.
DPW.
Yeah.
We don't need a permit.
I know it was reported, I'm not sure exactly what the time, but I know that there was one that was reported and it was taken care of.
Okay. You don't need any permits.
I'm not sure if it's the
You
same
don't need
one.
any permits to take a
No,
tree.
we don't actually, we go to the county.
Okay,
I have a question on the,
yes.
is anything be done with the traffic lights on that intersection with the train track and how the traffic backs up over the train tracks with the red lights? And if you go over the train tracks, you can't see the lights changing.
Yeah, all the signals are going to be replaced. A turning lane is going to be provided, and the overall goal of the project is to increase the level of capacity at the intersection. So that should improve it.
So it's going to widen on the
Yes.
other side of the train tracks?
Yes. Yes.
And you're going to go into the building that's abandoned now? Is that how you're going to
It's going
widen
to widen on both sides.
it? Okay, so it'll be on both sides of the train tracks?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Before Mike finishes, there are a couple of things on my list that involve engineering issues. Maybe I can cover them now, and so Mike doesn't have to wait around, if that's okay. You saw today a couple of resolutions that were circulated regarding a utility plan that's needed in order to pass along two proposals to us, one which related to a specific property and one which was town-wide. So there's a significant difference in the price of the, because I wasn't sure which way we were going to go. In discussing it with Mike before the meeting, I think probably it makes more sense to do the lesser EV, but and what this involves, additional demand on the pumping station and the sanitary sewers from the new residential development. So there's a law that permits us to pass along some infrastructure costs to developers if there's a direct impact. So we ultimately will need a town-wide analysis of that, but we probably don't need that right now. So in going over it, I thought that it's probably a better idea, I think Mike agrees, to go with the less costly partial component for right now, and we can always expand it later. So that's why you saw two resolutions basically for the same thing, except one was more expensive and more expansive than the other. So if you have any details.
That's correct.
The lesser was 13.
Was 25 or 28?
28, yeah. It was 28.
The 13, how much of that can we tie back to the development?
I would say all of it. That's the reason we broke it out. We originally submitted our original proposal based on the meeting we had with respect to the development of that site. And it was my understanding that we would have to do a town-wide sanitary sewer utility plan, which would include the entire town. That's why I submitted that.
But that's not the case. We don't need to do that.
We don't believe so. My discussion with the administrator, Bob said, well, why don't we attributable to the developer, and as a result, we provide.
The remaining part of that, 15, could that be broken out too if other properties come online? And
it gets more difficult because originally we wanted to break it out into multiple different sections. It all goes to the pump stations, and so you really have to look at everything together. We felt that with this one area for 120 West Passaic Street, we could break it out into just that. But once you get into looking at the pump station, you're really looking at everything as a whole.
Ultimately, we're going to have to do a town-wide utility plan. So to do that right up front, probably not, but ultimately we will with the rest of the project. It's $28,000, but it's not.
Contractually won't do that because.
Well, right. Yeah. And there probably will be other projects that come online that we can, if we can justify it, we can pass along cost of that as well. So
that was in the first place. Rather than us get hit with the full amount, and we needed to be able to determine exactly how much we can charge out to each of them. So we're able to give a breakdown for that entirely. So.
No, I was going to mention the railroad avenue, but I think Mr. Kelly covered it. We are still waiting. There's some takings that we have to initiate, but we won't be able to do that until the county finalizes their plan and approves our plan. So it's kind of on hold until we do that. That's it.
Just one last thing I forgot to mention for the Carlock Field bleacher project. We're going to. And I'm hoping that this is okay with the township. We're going to submit an award from the New Jersey Society of Municipal Engineers. I think it's a nice project. I feel like came out really well. I think it's really an asset to the community, and so I'm pushing for it to get an award.
How much money will we get?
0. You get a plaque and you get a participation trophy.
The only thing that, if I can, the Terrace Avenue project, I'm sure you will speak about it later on, but I think that was a fantastic project. I'm sure all the residents there are happy. I actually would like to thank all the residents for all their cooperation working on a dead-end street is not exactly an easy thing to do. And so there was a lot of cooperation back. Yeah, at the end run, it's a great project. And we're looking forward to doing more of those type of projects in the town.
Thank you, and I believe we are slightly under budget for that project based on as-built quantities. We did have a little bit of work, but I believe that we're under the contract amount. I can't commit to the amount because I don't have the final numbers yet, but I believe that we're going to be under, which is great.
All right. Much.
Okay, all right, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, next up, we have our CFO, Roy Rigatano, to discuss the plan. And we also have a couple of those questions that you can answer. We'll also call up Ms. Fountain and let her
Do we answer the
discuss.
questions first, or should I go through my report?
Let's go through the report and then we'll see if there's still questions outlined.
All right. So the audit is for 2018. Many of the audit questions that came up were already satisfied. However, because it wasn't 18, I will tell you if we fixed those issues or not. Internal procedures to review to ensure purchase orders are approved. They pretty much have been tightened up. Are they, every one of them done? No, but we're in the process of doing so. We're cleaning up the escrow deposits from years back. We're going to distribute them back to the public as well as to the township itself. Local fire safety inspection fee revenue has been transferred from the other trust fund. It is now in the current fund as per the audit, as well as the finance committee's request. That is done. On the way, however, we have tightened up that as well, but it is not complete. The affordable housing reserve account shall be reported in an annual financial report to the state. The administrator is working on that. I cannot do that report under internal controls. The actuary calculation claims liability related to prescription benefit plan is also underway. It is not complete. It is underway. Purchases and contracts through co-op purchasing agreements in excess of the bid threshold must be approved by the township by resolution. We have that on the bills claims list. We're now, when we have these, you'll see a resolution accompany that as well. That's done. 2 quotes shall be obtained for tree and cleaning services. That was not done last year. This year, those quotes are being done by the DPW superintendent. On the COLA prescription benefits amounts, they have to be included on the bills claims list. Some were, some were not. The reason they were not is because these are the 2 accounts that are done with wires. They're not direct checks issued from the township committee. We had a third party that did that work, excluding COLA. I can tell you that also is done. That's a check mark. It's complete. The township clerk, Uniform Construction Code, Board of Health accounts shall be closed and deposited in the current account. That is done. Internal controls shall be reviewed and implemented to establish a standardized revenue collection system. That is done. Deposit slips shall be maintained in the building department, made available for the audit. We're doing that as well. For the court, recommended 2 signatures appear on the general account and bail account. That is done. That is your audit, other than the one question I was asked: are all part-time employees who are eligible for enrollment in the defined contribution time system being enrolled? They are. The quote, there was some change in the law a few years ago. It was much more stringent to become a member of the DCRP back in 2007. And if you Google it, you'll see the statute is very explicit. You had to make that $5,000 or greater. So as a CFO for the township, I took the threshold of $5,000. But when you have part-time employees who we don't know what they're how many hours they're going to do, I'm not going to, through the finance committee, spend 5% on someone's salary when on December 31st, they don't meet the $5,000 criteria. So I'm continuing to be very, very conservative, but also follow the law. And when I see an individual that's going to exceed the thresholds, we will enroll that employee. We have one right now that has been put into the system this year. We are reviewing other individuals, but again, because it is an hourly employee, again, I'm not going to expend township funds if we don't need to do so. That's my comment on the DCLP. I'll ask any other, so through Mark and Linda and the rest of the committee who's on finance, and Nick, there were no audit findings that contain financial issues that were detriment to the township. What I read to you were internal controls that had to be typed up. We get them every single year. Because we are a small township as far as staff, we do our best. I think we do actually quite a job as far as the audit is concerned. As you can see, there were no financial issues, dollars, that affected the audit. So it's a clean audit. There are issues that have to be dealt with. The major ones were already done, and that was basically getting those internal controls put into the finance office for the revenue side. It is complete.
Ms. Hammond, do you have any other questions to follow up?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. You want me to say or can you do it?
Just for picking up with the microphone, I'm sorry. We had a traveling mic, I'd run out there.
2 questions. First of all, the pension thing. Anybody getting a stipend that's not applied to them?
A stipend, as far as volunteerism, it would not be unless it hits the $5,000 threshold. It would apply to them.
It would apply?
It would apply.
It would apply. Okay, second of all, I may have missed it, but I'm not sure. There's a reoccurring finding, recommendation on purchase orders being approved prior to purchase.
Yeah, that happens more frequent than not. And that usually has to do with purchase orders issued prior to the buying of equipment. And the order, as far as the administrator and I were concerned, the order picked up, basically it was the weekend where a tire blew out, they had to buy a piece of equipment. So what we've done this year is we've issued, quote, blanket purchase orders for those type of expenditures. Hopefully, we're tightening the reins. There were, out of 50 tests, there were 11 that we did not pick up on. I can tell you, at least half already have been satisfied.
But as of today, they're all being approved prior to purchasing.
Not every one of them, not every one of them, I'd be fibbing here. No, we did have a couple, and we did speak to the department heads about making sure they get those purchase orders before they buy the equipment. And I want the public to understand, it's basically because of the weekend situation.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions for our CFO?
Yes.
Over here.
No.
Let's go.
All right, yeah. Roy, financially, what shape is the township in for the rest of the year and the beginning of next year?
So, the revenue stream is fair, it's not great. The appeals continue to mount. We had another appeal that came in, we weren't aware of. I will not disclose it to the public if you're talking set because it is under stipulation. So we do have a pending appeal. We've exhausted the reserve for appeals, which is not good. I came before you, I'm in the public, it was recorded. I said, I wish we had a little more money in some of the reserves. So with that being said, The expenditure side, we're in good shape. I don't see any over expenditures other than potentially the tax appeal, which no one here or in this room really has any hand on. It goes through the court system. When we get the stipulations for the orders by the court, then we proceed through the borough attorney and obviously you as the committee. Going into next year, it's a little too early to say. As of June 30th, I do a mock-up year-end review, and it wasn't bad. It's not great, but the revenue streams appear to be on stream. But I caution everyone in this room that tax appeals continue to come into play with our financials.
Just, okay, great. We have, there's a new ruling on the payout of tax appeals. Can you explain what that ruling is?
So what happens is, the finance notice has not been issued yet, it's still in committee. And what it will do is it will allow the township committee to quote unquote bond some of the appeals for a period between 3 and 5 years, because some of the towns, not us, thank goodness, are in the millions and millions of dollars that they cannot make those payments. The landmark decision, the case study, was Nutley, New Jersey, Hoffman LaRoche. That caused, between that and the Borgata Casino Hotel, those were the two landmark decisions that basically said, you're going to bankrupt Atlantic City if you make that payment today. They can't do it. So they're giving, the local finance board is going to give an extended period of time to make those payments for those properties that were successful in the tax appeal process and had their assessments low.
I have a question. I know you've been working to correct those issues that were found in the audit. Do we have deadlines to comply?
I gave myself a deadline September 1st. I can tell you the majority, not all, because some of them are not under my control, but the department heads are aware of it. And the purchase order one is a stickler, and we're working on that. So to answer your question, they are not all complete, and I think I gave the public and you those that were not complete, but in progress.
You'll keep us updated.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Member of the public?
I just want to clarify something. You spoke about a trust account that was transferred to township money.
Yes, that's the LEA rebate program. Some of those funds were put in Fund 13 for the past couple of years. We're going to set all those funds, and the sheet that I gave you is now being put in as we started in January. Yeah.
Sheet I got
Mm-hmm.
from,
Wait,
I didn't get any sheets.
I'll make sure you get another one.
Yeah.
It's being done. The revenue that comes in, the permits, I have them encoded.
So what I'm speaking about is I think the misconception is everybody keeps calling this a trust account. Trust
It's not trust account.
Right. That's what I want to clarify. Trust accounts are by rider.
Correct, under 212A.
Correct. 192, 5227D at SAC to be exact.
Yeah.
So I want everybody to be aware that that is not a penalty trust account. That is what that is. A trust account, 212A, is penalty money. The money that you took from an account that existed in the town has nothing to do with the Fire Prevention Bureau.
It did in the past before we were here.
2003.
It was misconstrued funds that were corrected last year.
That's exactly.
So let the public know that the money was never disappeared. It was accounted for, accounted wrongly, and we fixed it last year.
And I think wrongly stated that the Fire Prevention Bureau mandated that the money go in there.
No one mandates me, I follow the law. I don't care who it is.
And just
And
for
it's being done
clarification,
right.
that was 5 years BD before Darrell.
Absolutely. And before me.
Okay. Sorry, thank you. One of the corrections in the audit, the reason I'm asking is because during my communications with the audit committee, or your audit firm, this past year. They asked me and indicated that we were supposed to be getting deposit slips back for everything that we do give down to the town office. We still don't get that. Can that be looked at?
Absolutely, when copies will go back to Jenny and give to everyone.
Okay, any other member of the public? Any member of the township committee with further questions? Seeing none.
Right, comments for the building department? If those, as far as the controls over there,
They've been satisfied, so what's happening is,
did that take any exposure in the past?
there was no exposure, the money was always deposited. What's happening now is, because the state is being more stringent on deposits, internal controls, literally every deposit that the building department takes in for a permit is literally walked down to our office. We put it in the computer system ourselves, as well as building department. So we have two sets of internal controls: the money that goes in the bank from us, and the report that is generated from the building department with improprieties with the money, including the fire prevention 2003.
And anywhere from the.
These are about the ones for the roofing incentives, but very quick, again, no fault of the township, but we lost roughly 20% revenue statewide. And I can talk about it publicly. And basically, if you put a new roof on your home, you don't need to take a building permit out. It doesn't have to be inspected. But I also made a quote to the league. I made it very clear to the governor's office that when we have a snowfall, and you get 2, 3, 4 feet on a roof, and somebody take the layer off the roof to save money, and it collapses, there'll be no blood on any community's hands. It's going to be the legislation who said, save the money. I think it's wrong.
But no update from them on restoring that?
No, nothing whatsoever. Again, it's a whole.
Any questions for the CFO? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything. Thank you, public.
Okay, so next up we have tree removal discussion. This is dealing with one particular tree on the corner of East Terrace and Collingham. The site, I met with the administrator there, and this was to remove a tree, or at least discuss removing a tree that was damaging a curb, as well as creating a problem lifting a retaining wall on the resident's property. I indicated at the time I was supportive of removing the tree because of the damage that it was causing and the potential for more damage. I would like to officially get this taken care of and instruct the DPW supervisor to take care of this as soon as possible. So, Mr. Davison, do you have anything else that you want me to address before I make the motion to remove the tree?
No, I mean, the whole issue here is that, you know, the DPW superintendent, he looked at the tree himself as well. One of the recommendations that was made to the shade tree, was our shade tree,
Comrie.
Mr. Comrie. He said that the resident will be able to remove or cut back on the roots of the tree in order to try to stop that from what causes the issue with the wall. The resident wants the tree down. And so Jim, only because of the fact that pertaining to any kind of precedent here, taking down, you know, what would be considered to be a good tree. In the future, if in fact somebody else wants to have a tree taken down, that doesn't create an issue for him.
I think if you look at the conditions that are on the curb alone, this is certainly destroying the curb line.
There is no
So
curb. There's no curb there, Mike,
There
for
is.
about 50 feet.
if you look at the pictures, there
I went
is
to
a
that
curb.
house.
There is a curb there. So my motion is to remove this tree and go ahead with the approval to get this tree taken care of and removed from the site. So that is my motion. Do I have a second?
I just have a question, how do we proceed moving forward with future issues that comes to us?
I think we need to discuss a full plan of action to address trees and assess the health of the tree and the impact of what it is, in fact, doing to the built environment that's around it. So I think we can do that. I'm also asking for some surrounding towns to supply us with their process and if they have a shade tree ordinance or if they have a shade tree commission, maybe we can take some of the ideas that they're employing over there.
Only, but again, I guess another issue, quite frankly, pertains to whether it's this tree or any other tree, is you do have residents who also, with the trees are now affecting their sewer lines, and so that they have to have a cleared lot, and as a result of that, I mean, it's a cost for the homeowners, and previously, people have also asked to have the trees removed and they were not. So just to give you so, if there's more to it than just the whole thing.
I think we're lacking here in a procedure to get to remove a tree. Is there even a form or procedure for this? There should be something, there should be a form online, something. It seems like so random how the process is gonna be here.
I
A resident goes to what? Go find one of us, go to the administrator, go to the DPW. This is like a roundabout way to get the thing done.
Generally speaking, what happens is when we do get a complaint about a tree, the superintendent normally goes out and takes it in. He's the one that takes care of it normally. Okay. However, this particular issue is gotten a little bit more involved because, the resident wants to do that.
I think it's time we test out my root barrier system. The man from Paramus said to cut the roots, and that's what they do. They cut the roots and then they put this barrier system in. They attach, so you could put 1, 2, 3. If you want to put 6 together, you can put them down and stop the roots from going. I actually have a whole box. 20 pieces, so 20 pieces at 2 foot is 40 pieces, 40 feet. I think it's time we try that. Instead of cutting a tree down.
Not at this point. Let me just continue the conversation up here for just 1 minute. So we have a suggestion of putting in these root barriers.
Correct.
Do they need to be put in prior to a tree being installed?
No.
Okay. All right, so now that we have a little bit more information, I still have the motion on the floor. If you want to, reject that motion, you can certainly do that. So do we have a second? Okay, seeing no second, then we can have further discussion. I'm going to ask the resident to come forward and address the issue and see what kind of impact it has on your house.
Hi, Jack and Jen Jersovic, 47 Cumming Avenue. So I think it's more than just removing the tree, and the roots are the main problem, obviously, because the roots are embedded underneath the ground, and that's what's lifting the part of the sidewalk, well, not sidewalk, but I guess it's all grass. So we maintain that, even though it's not our property, we maintain that and we keep it nice and we keep it so that, the town looks good, our property looks good and it reflects well on the town. Now we're at the point where the roots are going underneath and they're lifting our retaining wall. That we paid a lot of money to, again, beautify our property, which we live on and we pay taxes for. So I feel.
So Linda, it's not the curb.
No, it's your retaining wall.
But the roots are going, it's past the curb and it goes all the way to the point right in front of the retaining wall. You could see there's a big mound. It looks like there's a body there.
Sorry.
I mean, the mayor and
sit down, I'm not feeling much.
the mayor and the administrator both witnessed that they appeared on site. So not only is there a big mound where that patch of grass is in front of the wall, which is not on the curb, as you stated, it's starting to lift my retaining wall in 2 parts. And now there's, once those roots get past that retaining wall, the wall's gonna come up, it's gonna break my sprinkler, it's gonna break my wall that I paid a lot of money for. So if that happens, who do I send the bill to? Am I gonna send it to you?
Well, the mayor writes that the wall is on the township right away. Is that correct? The mayor wrote us an email.
I took out my proper permits, building inspection was there, they did everything they had to do, I did everything by the book. There
I'm
was no
just-
problems when it was done. This was, 2013?
Yeah.
Okay. Everything was passed, everything was done properly, nothing to hide.
When they replaced the sidewalks in town, they cut the roots. for
No, they did not.
No,
They didn't
no,
replace that sidewalk.
Not your house. When we go around and we replace sidewalk slabs that have been lifted by a tree, they cut the roots. So
Okay.
instead of taking the street, there's a tree on the street by me that's lifting the asphalt in the street. And I brought that to the attention of the DPW superintendent. He told me it's a healthy tree.
So what
They
happens?
he said to me the same thing. They cut the roots.
So what happens, okay, so fine, so they replaced the sidewalk or whatever. So now, you got, if the town replaced the sidewalk on East Terrace, on the corner by where the kids, pick up the school bus, okay? That sidewalk is lifting again.
That's
So
the
what's the
problem with these
purpose?
trees.
What is the purpose? I mean, are we just throwing money away, or are we just doing the right, we should be doing the right job to begin with, and not have to go back years later and do it again? Isn't that a waste of money?
Yeah.
Chances are they planted the wrong types of trees in some of these areas, because, some of the curb grasses are very narrow, and they planted some trees that get very
Okay,
wide.
the homeowner has been there since her 60s. This is the third time. Third time. Obviously, something's not right. I bust my you-know-what, making sure that my property is nice and clean. I got other bigger problems around my property that need to be taken care of, which I actually act as a secret detective. Not that you need to know, but, I mean, I got this retaining wall that I spent a lot of money for, and now you want to put a barrier around it? What's that gonna do with my retaining wall?
It'll stop the roots from going
It's
under the
something to stop the
retaining
root.
wall.
And where, I'm sorry, where does,
Nowhere.
where does the barrier go? Does it go,
In front of, between the tree and your wall,
In the ground.
in the
is
ground.
it visible?
No,
Okay. And then who's gonna be responsible if there is damage still going forward to the wall or to our property?
once we cut the tree roots, you probably won't see any damage to your
So
wall.
if you cut the tree roots, then the tree's dead, isn't it?
No, they cut trees, roots all the time.
So you're gonna dig up the lawn, cut the tree roots, and then put everything back again?
Yes.
Seed and so forth?
Yes,
And the tree's gonna stay?
yes,
And it won't affect our property?
it shouldn't.
Okay, and what about
That's
now?
what these
What about now?
are, these
that-
are actually root barriers, that's what they're known as.
Okay.
They keep the roots inside of going under sidewalk, curb lines, etc.
Okay.
The same thing's
and what
gonna
about-
happen like
Okay,
Jeanette.
hold on. So what about now that the wall's already been raised? Who's gonna fix- The wall's already up. The wall's already up.
You
It's
can
not
see,
flat.
it's
not
starting to
level.
come up.
It's
starting to
up
come up.
about a
There
quarter
is
of an
little-
inch. I saw the wall, I
Okay.
went there.
So who's gonna fix that?
Did you see the hump? Hopefully it can trip over.
No.
The kids walk there every day that come from the
That's
school.
It's
another
not,
hazard.
you don't even have a sidewalk by your house.
No, we
No,
don't.
I understand
Exactly.
that. That's not the issue.
And no
The issue
curb.
is that
Right.
there's kids walking from, not only from Midland, but high school kids.
Yeah.
Half of the time, these kids are just looking at their phone, walking.
Not even paying
You think that
attention.
they're paying attention? They hit that hump. That kid trips, hits my wall, cracks his head open. Who are they suing? Me, not you,
Exactly.
right?
That's another issue. I mean, there's multiple issues.
And the amount of garbage that I get from all these kids walking home on my property is, oh my
Well,
God.
because there's no curb and it doesn't go into the street.
Believe me, I pick up garbage every day on my
No, no, I
street.
know,
All right,
but
let's
it's
not,
just,
let's not concern from all.
so that's another big concern. It was that, Mr. Mayor, you and Mr. Administrator, you guys have seen the hump that I'm talking about. There's kids that have already tripped on that hump. One day, someone's gonna trip the other way and hit that wall, and someone's gonna try to sue me. And then what? Then we got to come after you.
Okay, you do it. I'm just saying, this will open up a can of worms. Do you know how many people ask for their trees to be
Well,
taken
I
down?
think the can of worms that's gonna be open is because you don't have policies and procedures in place and, you know, a reason to fix this, a way to fix this problem. I'm sure we're not the first people that came here and said, please remove the tree or do something, because it's on town property. So I think it's time that maybe you put policies and procedures in place and you figure out what you're gonna do. Because that's what you should be doing, that's what you, not you in general, you as an
Oh, that's all right, you can
That's what
blame
you
me.
should all be doing.
I got big shoulders.
I mean, no, we're not trying to be personal here, but if we say you, we mean the town. We pay enough taxes that, you know, things like this shouldn't be so difficult.
It also could be, you know, it could be also based on the property. Okay, fine, you know, that resident wants his tree down, but is anything affecting the property from that guy's tree as opposed to why I'm asking to get my tree down? I mean, there's reasons. Mine is more of a, number one, safety concern for the kids, right? I mean, it's always about the kids. That's number one. Number two, it's lifting my wall. I spent a lot of money for it. You know, I bust my ear want to keep my property nice. And I mean, you know, I don't want it to have to get to the point that I'm gonna have to repair it, then what? If that's gonna come out of my pocket?
Is the suggestion that we attempt to cut the roots back, put a barrier around?
No, I disagree with that. The barrier's not gonna do anything. I think the tree just needs to come down. The roots are just going all the way down now towards the school.
If the tree does come down, will you accept a new tree in that location that is a street-friendly tree along the same side of your property?
Yeah.
All right. So
That'll also be here by the time that thing gets to the wall.
So, all right, so how would you like to proceed? My motion was to remove the tree. That didn't receive any support, so let's see what we can come up with a solution to get this done.
Well, according to your letter, the wall is on the township's easement, is that
was
correct?
that was the information that I received from Jim Schmuck, the DPW supervisor. So I think it falls within the right of way of the township.
But the wall is on the easement.
Right, but I believe they received approvals to put that wall in place at the time of construction.
Yes.
So.
It was approved by the building department.
There should be permits on, we apply
Yeah,
for
there's
permits.
nothing that states that they did anything wrong by constructing the wall. It was just a point of information that it does, as I believe in what represents to me, that does fall within the right of way.
I actually believe that they went to the planning board or the zoning board, it wasn't just the building department, if I'm not mistaken.
With the probably a variance.
Yeah,
You had a meeting, right?
Yeah.
It was a meeting, so then it was, right.
Yeah, I believe that we were here, April or May of 13, Mr. Mayor. And what we did was we replaced the existing retaining wall that was there, that was crumbling into pieces.
All right, so if anyone wants to suggest a solution to this issue from the township committee, we just need to make sure that the our DPW knows which way to proceed in this matter.
After hearing the homeowner review, reintroduce. I would support.
To remove? Okay, so I am going to make my motion again to remove the tree from the property at the corner of East Terrace and College. Okay, let's have a roll call vote.
Committeewoman Bonifay?
No.
Committeeman Lavassi?
Yes.
Committeeman Bajnik?
Yes.
Mayor Kazner?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up on the agenda, we have a presentation on childhood poverty by Eva Jurcevic. And So come on up, take a seat at the table here, and, or if you'd like to make a presentation up there, whichever you feel most comfortable with. So, sure. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. My name is Eva Joseph, and tonight I would like to present an idea that will help many children in need.
Okay, just I'll speak a little bit closer to the mic and just a little bit slower so we can pick everything up. Thank you.
Before I talk about my event, I have a bit of background information about childhood poverty. My goal is to help eliminate childhood poverty in our area. Overall, New Jersey's child poverty rate is 13.9%. New Jersey has 272,251 impoverished children. Here are some facts and statistics about childhood poverty. 15 million children in the United States live in poverty. A child is born into poverty within 41 seconds in the United States. 1 in every child live in poverty. Those in poverty, 1 in 3 are children. Here are some issues that children in poverty face daily: inadequate health care and nutrition, untreated illness, unsafe child care, unstable housing, and inferior schools. The organization I chose is Children's Aid and Family Services. This organization helps children and families in need. They help families with adoption and foster care, and they teach them how to support each other financially. They help children with disabilities and with alcohol and drug addictions. They are a nonprofit organization and have a center in France. Here's an overview of the event. The fundraising event will be a family soccer game. All spectators will pay an entry fee of $5 and can donate more if they wish to. There will be refreshments for sale. The specifics for the event are the following. The game will be played between the Rochelle Park Soccer Board, including coaches and parents, versus the Division II high school team. Jack Jurcevic, United States national soccer referee, has volunteered to officiate, and 2 assistant referees will also be needed. The event will be promoted by the use of flyers all around town. The event will need to be posted on the town's website in order to assist publicity. I would like to have local businesses contribute to the event. The game will be held at Carlock Field. The tentative date is the weekend of October 5th and 6th. My goal for this event is that we collect as much as possible to go toward the children. The majority of the event's proceeds will go toward the cause, and a small portion will cover expenses that are not donated. Some expenses for the event may include refreshments such as water, soda, meat, chips, etc. If we have any local food distributors, such as Dairy Queen or ShopRite, contribute to the event, we can donate refreshments for the event. Appreciate your consideration, and I'm very glad that this event may have the ability to help so many children in need. You enjoyed my presentation, and I look forward to making this an annual event in our town. Thank you.
Are you available for questions?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, are you doing this for any school activity?
Well, this was originally a school project, but we had to send a letter regarding Red Nose Day or childhood poverty to an elected official. And then some people decided that we could mail it, some people didn't. I decided to mail it, and I'm glad that this could be addressed.
Okay. And what grade are you in?
I'm going to 7th grade.
Okay. All right. And we have our soccer program coordinator, president here. Could you come up and at least maybe state if you would be interested in working with this young lady to get this program off the ground?
He's scared to go up against the opponent. I don't want to go, but I'm not going to last. Yeah, soccer is definitely interested in participating with this event. I was just looking at my calendar, and I'm looking at the dates. It's not looking very friendly at that time, Midland Schoolfield. If I can get the permit for that. Actually, I have the permit, I believe, for that day. It would be a better venue for us. Our field time for the permits at Carlock are filled up with games that on Sunday, and the Saturday date, I'd have to check with the coach of that team and make sure you can get players. But other than that, we're definitely, I think it'd be very fluid, we can move forward. She can move forward with what she's looking to do, and we'll support with whatever we can.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, do you think that it might also, may want to do this presentation to the rec committee themselves and try to get the recreation involved? in this
Sure,
as
I
well?
think that they would be a good source of volunteers. So would you make sure that she's treated kindly by the rec?
Well, you cut our
Oh, the next-
budget, so
oh,
I don't
yes.
know if we have any money for anything.
So when's the next meeting?
Tuesday
Next Tuesday.
at,
Are you able to?
Mountain Hall.
Are you
Yes.
7:30 Tuesday? Mountain Hall? Can we make sure that she gets on the agenda?
Sure.
And we can do this, maybe we could rustle up some volunteers. And I'm sure if you're looking for funding for certain aspects, I'm sure you'll be able to find, or we will be able to find up here, some type of funding through donations through various organizations in town. So let's make sure we get this done. And if we're ready to move forward through soccer, I think that's great. And hopefully we have a nicely well-attended event on I guess it's going to be the 5th, because the 6th is the day that they couldn't use, but I think the 5th. So pending any changes, especially with participants, then we'll proceed as proposed. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for doing this. It's a great gesture.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I couldn't hear in the beginning, and I'm an old guy, so I can't hear, but anyhow. Who's the recipient of the funds and who's the sponsor of this organization?
So the organization is Children's Aid and Family Services. It's in Paramus, so that's where their center is.
Children's Aid and Family Service in Paramus.
No.
No, it will be the recipient.
The recipient of the donations.
Welfare Children from Children's Aid Society
Paramus.
of Paramus?
Yes.
If I might just add, I'm familiar with that organization, my wife works for them. They cover a wide range of kids with disabilities, group homes. They're all over Bergen County. They have multiple homes that they take care of kids.
I just didn't hear, if I couldn't hear.
No problem.
And one suggestion is maybe we could, with an admission fee, if people want to bring items to donate as a food, like a pantry, non-perishable, maybe we could do that as well. And that could be donated to one of our local food pantries, so that we address not only a larger organization, but maybe an organization in town, to make sure that we hit all residents, and we can address this issue by both methods.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have a question from
Yeah,
audience member.
14A. Any press notified on this, such as News 12 or iOS 1?
Oh, not yet.
I'm just getting into it.
Okay. Do you have a contact?
No, I don't.
Okay.
We'll make sure we have a list of press. Yeah, we'll get you a list of media contacts, so you can promote the event, and I'm sure it'll be covered.
And the other thing too is, your presentation is about the township website, or maybe we can do a Facebook page as well.
Okay.
We'll take care of that.
Do you have our email address?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if this is going to be a repeating thing, but I think October 5th is garage sale day in Rochelle Park. I don't know if we want 2 events going on at once.
I think that
It might draw a different crowd, but, just to have 2 events on one day.
So what is that? Garage sale will be-
It's fall afternoon, and the rain date is the 6th, I believe.
It's all day.
It's all day.
So, I still think that this type of event is something that's pulling from a different group. Obviously, that is something that you could, consider if you think it's going to impact impact the event. If you want to select a different day, feel free to do that. But initially, I don't think that that will be a problem with kind of getting attendees on the event. All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I actually knew that
Yeah. Yeah. So the next up, we have an update on the sale of 49 East Passaic Street, which is also known as the Tyson House. So, Mr. Rotolo, could you give us an update?
Sure, Mayor. I circulated some information about the auction sale, which was approved a number of months ago by the Township Committee and is actually scheduled for tomorrow. I've been in touch with the Realtor, Ms. Healy, over the course of the months since we authorized the sale. And I'll just say that the response is less than enthusiastic in terms of people interested. I also prepared an information package to be distributed to bidders after we advertised. And I spoke with the clerk on Friday, and as of Friday, nobody had picked up, not a single person picked up the bid package.
Was that supplied to the Realtor as well?
It was, yeah.
So it's possible they could have gotten.
Yeah. She said she did receive a number of calls, but because of the way we ultimately decided to sell it, subject to existing zoning, she's not optimistic that we're going to get any, maybe no bids, maybe we get some, but they're going to be low. So, I had recommended previously that the committee consider authorizing a change in uses for that property, expanding in a limited way to some other uses, professional offices and so forth. And I just thought I'd make another pitch to try to do that, to maximize what we can get in, in terms of bids for the sale of the property. And my recommendation that I made to you was that the sale be, carried for 45 or so days to allow us to do that. And hopefully the result of that would be more interest and more money for the town. I mean, if it's going to be sold, I think that's probably a prudent thing to do. Put it out there, I've said it before, but put it out there now because now we have the experience of the last 60 days. Really hasn't been that productive. So we can still do it before the end of calendar year, but I think it would serve a couple of purposes if we consider that, maximize the bids that we get, and also it could help us retain the building itself, if we could do both. And I had this discussion with the committee previously, but I think it seemed to me out of a sense of frustration, it was just, go ahead and sell it just the way it is, but that really hasn't panned out, and I think it's a disservice if we just do it that way, but of course it's your call. And let me just finish, Mayor, I did prepare a motion, a resolution, which essentially provides that the sale be scheduled for a date in November, would allow us to authorize or accept a bid before the end of November, that in the interim, we would be able to introduce and adopt a change in zone and reconduct the auction at that time with some additional conditions. So the downside is it takes another 45 or something like that, 45 and 60 days, but I think it would be a good thing. I recommend that you do it. But once again, it's your call. I just figured I'd make one last ditch effort before we go through with this.
So just 1 second, I'll grab them. You have a couple of proposed uses that could be permissible in the zone.
Right.
These are open to discussion.
Yeah, the only reason
have a discussion on rezoning in the future.
Those uses were all uses that had been discussed before and were actually submitted to the township planner and the planning board for comment. But yeah, my thought was we can discuss it at the September 11th work session, make a decision. We can introduce the change in zone on September 25th, adopt on October 23rd, and conduct the sale. I had originally said November 21st. Mr. Rogers made a good point that because of the way our meeting falls, it would carry another month. So we can back that date up to the 14th of November and then either accept or reject bids on November 20th. So it would all be done in that relatively short period of time.
Okay. All right.
I was going to ask the same thing with the proposed permitted use. So you have here 1 and 2 family residents, bed and breakfast, professional offices, business offices, and restaurants.
Correct. And again, those were all things that were discussed previously, so it's not that I just came up with a list. These were things that were discussed. My personal feeling is the most likely bidder for a decent price would be for a professional office, I think. We got a lot of inquiries in that regard, but it would require the successful bidder going to the Board of Adjustment for a variance. They may approve it, they may not approve it. It's speculation.
Well, that's my next question. So there is, the way it sits now, there's risk to the potential buyer on what they would be able to use the property for.
And
So,
cash risk, if they have to buy it for cash, not a mortgage.
Right.
I understand.
Yeah, they would have
My
to buy it.
question is if we go through with this and change the proposed permitted, change the permitted use, will we increase the sale price?
I believe we would. Oh, and by the way, I didn't mention it earlier, but in my conversation, of course, the last few months with Ms. Healy, this was her thought as well. She was very concerned that we wouldn't produce anything that significant with the way we put it up for sale. And she recommended this as well. And frankly, she was concerned that it would appear that she didn't really serve a good role in this whole process. But her hands were really tied with the way we did it. So
You have an idea of the increase?
not really, but it seems to me that that type of use, because we got a lot of inquiries early on from professional users, but Bob had people contact him, and I had people contact me directly based on what they read in the newspapers. But nobody would, with an intent to use it for a non-permitted use, would bid on it, and as Mark said, pay all cash and run the risk of going to the zoning board and being denied. It would seem like it would be something they may be favorably disposed and grant, but it's not guaranteed. They're an autonomous body, they make their own decisions. So I know we want to move forward with this. This would cause a delay, but I mean, it's been a number of years, so is another 60 days really?
And I just have one more statement, I guess, just to clarify. So number 5, we have what you have listed as a further condition of the sale. The successful bidder shall be required as a condition of acceptance of the bid to maintain the exterior of the existing structures in substantially the same architectural design as currently exists in an effort to maintain the character of that.
Right. And that, though, these other conditions were all taken from prior sale resolutions. The difference would be we're tying it into a change in use. So when you tie all these things together, I think that would be the most productive. And Ms. Healy agrees with that. So you guys have to make the decision. I can only recommend, and it'd be your last opportunity to do that, essentially. So
Any other comments from the committee?
I find it hard to believe that a professional office will come in there at 400,000, and I'm sure the neighborhood around, if it went to the zoning board, they'd be in there rallying to basically telling the zoning board this would be okay to make it a professional office. And instead you want to go rezone it, then claim that it can't be demolished. So again, here we are, 4 years from the purchase, and we're going to try to kick the can down the center aisle again.
It's not kicking in. It's been on the market. We didn't get any interest, so.
The auction's tomorrow and it needs to go.
That's fine.
Yeah. I make a motion to sell the house tomorrow.
Well, the resolution already exists, the auction is already on the table.
The only thing I would do on that resolution, the dates, I think we should change. If you're gonna make, somebody's gonna make the motion, the new date, rather than November 21st, should be November 14th. The advertisement dates would be October 28th and November 4th. That would allow us to accept bid, conduct the motion, take the bid on the 14th. Our meeting is on the 20th, so it would only be a week later we'd be able to accept the bid and you know, hoping for the best, and then close title before the end of the calendar year. So
we're talking October 28th as the publication and November 4th?
Right, you have to publish it twice, and then, correct.
So, and any of these restrictions, when they are officially, I guess, discussed at one of the next meetings, we will nail down exactly the terms.
Right.
And the price.
Right, correct.
And the price.
And I think we'd be guided by Vicky, because she's had some interest, so she could probably help us with that.
And the protective easement.
Right.
That would be probably discussed and vetted through our planner.
Right.
Because they would give the language for a protective easement on there. And this would be open to essentially adaptive reuse of the property as it exists for multiple additional types of uses. Okay. So one of the things about the sale of the house itself at approximately $300,000 less than the amount of tax dollars we have into it, it would mean that there's a recoup period of that loss of over 18 years to get that money back. So if we do sell it at $300,000 less, we won't see any financial gain from that sale until over 18 years from now. So I think with the potential for the building as it is, currently being on the, at least the ability for it to be removed from the property, with that compiled with a recovery time of 18 years to get the taxpayers' monies back. What I'd like to do is I'd like to make a motion to introduce this resolution and adopt it. I believe the number would be 2019-182. Is that correct? Okay, which postpones the sale of the house and opens the discussion to address the usage concerns and protective easements that could be put onto the property in order to increase the potential of the taxpayers recouping the money that is in that property. So with that, I make that motion.
So I have a question. So this resolution that we have in front of us has all the stipulations that you just mentioned, right?
Well,
Except,
yeah, the zone, it's just a recommendation as to the zoning uses. That would have to be done by ordinance, which we have to discuss. But keep in mind, though, it would have to be kept on a pretty tight
time.
the timeline that I gave you, it's got to really stick to that. Otherwise, it's going to, it's going to defer it. Who knows when, so.
And Joe, just to clarify, if we do the auction tomorrow, whatever happens, and he didn't like the results, we have a work session on the 11th. If we wanted to go ahead and change the uses, could we still auction by November 14th? That timeline still works.
You mean if we accepted bids tomorrow and rejected them?
Yeah, if bids came in tomorrow and we rejected it,
Right.
and November 11th we have a meeting, September 11th we have a meeting. We said, you know what, we want to add the uses, we could do the changes, we could still auction by mid-November, correct? I think that's what you told me.
If you you could still do it, you would have to add an extra step of rejecting the bids. The only problem was, and again, it's just relying on the real estate professionals, once you have it, people submit bids. Number one, people are coming, they're doing searches, inspections, coming up with a $40,000 check, attending the auction. Well, I mean, it's an inconvenience to anybody that's interested, and you're also setting.
And the process tomorrow is a sealed bid auction, or is it
No, it's an actual
open public auction?
So,
Everyone's gonna show their cards.
yeah, and that's part of the downside of doing, and that's only just kind of a marketing thing.
And just to clarify, we had the auction previously last year, was it?
Right.
And there was no bids at all.
There were no bids, that's correct.
And what was the original listing price on the house when you bought it?
600. 600, it was 600,000.
It's back in the appraisal showed an MLS listing for 679.
Before we purchased it.
Back in the appraisal report, it had 679
Yeah,
listing.
that could very well be. It was in that range, I don't remember the exact numbers.
So you got a $79,000 discount. Next.
We keep, Mayor,
Yes.
you keep pointing out there's a loss of $700,000. The loss was when the house was purchased in 2015 without a home inspection. Then the township committee who bought this house had a group of volunteers who were willing to work. You never acted on the preservation plan, which was the first thing, $30,000. You never did it. You try to say the money is a loss. The loss was when you bought it. Never a preservation plan.
Right now.
You all ran away from
We're
it,
discussing.
left it in the hands. I'm just
Motion
trying
that
to,
we
you
have.
keep pointing out the loss. I'm trying to show the loss plus the tax revenue over the past 4 years. So we had another $50,000 onto it. You talked about the Rose Garden. That was you, the Rose Garden. That never happened. Then you came in with the development credits. It takes 1 to 2 years to start developing credits on a piece of property, and they're not for 1 acre lots. They're for big areas, mostly farms that are preserved. So you came in with your 3 plans. None of them will ever work.
So we have a motion on the floor to accept this resolution 2019-182, which amends resolution 2019-108 for the sale of the house. And I think we have a second.
Yes.
And
I just want to say, Joe, please stick to the schedule so we don't carry this on. And work with Vicky to increase the price. Certainly now there's.
You guys agreed to the conditions of selling it as is with the residential. You didn't want to add these uses before.
Who agreed to the condition?
When we discussed
We've
this
had no
several
interest,
months
Mark.
ago.
We've had no interest.
We do now have to.
There was no interest when you bought it.
I didn't buy it.
No, I know you did.
So the resolution, the motion is on the floor. Can we do a roll call vote?
Committeewoman Boniface?
No.
Committeeman Lavassi?
Yes.
Committeeman Deitchler?
No.
Mayor Castro?
Yes. And let's try and have those applicants here for early in the meeting so we can do a quick interview.
Sure.
And get them on their way, and then we can proceed with our business as well. And that's a work session, so it'll probably be in the small room.
Start at 8.
Start at 8. Is there any problem with starting at 8? By any member of the committee? Okay, let's proceed. All right. The extra fire truck, this has been on here a number of times before.
Waiting to hear from the grant, for the grant.
Right, so.
Mr. Mayor, we received something, the chief sent it to me that they should be within the next week or two, hopefully, awarded the grant, so.
Okay, so this is a placeholder until we know exactly what the
I believe that.
result of that
I
grant
believe
is.
it's talking at the end of that everything should be out no later than the end of the month of September.
Okay, so we should be able to address this issue at one of the meetings in September, possibly, if not the first.
In most cases, it will be October, worst case.
All right, so it'll remain on here as a placeholder until we have that taken care of.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I was looking around to see if anybody had sold an engine, about the approximate age. And I found, Woodbine has sold a 95 Pierce, truck to a volunteer fire company in Arkansas. Sold it for $27,000, which was a pretty good price, considering that age. So I emailed them and found their broker that they used. So I got some of the specs and emailed them to try and get an idea of what they think you could sell for. Because I think going to a general auction site like a Gov Deals, it's not gonna generate as much proceeds. You're not targeting an audience. So I'm waiting for a little bit of specs on that. But once I get that, we'll find out if we can get it, what kind of price we can get.
Okay. Great, good work. That's actually a pretty good idea because specialty equipment, especially of that size, probably needs to be handled a little differently than some of our other equipment that we sell. Okay, and non-contractual employee hours. So this was something that I said I would be interested in seeing a change in the amount of times. We did have a very quick discussion as to some of the impacts that may have on the township, but we need to, I think we still need.
We're waiting, Joe sent a email to the labor attorney, and
Right.
he's gonna, with some questions,
Right.
and he'll get back.
So that'll stay on there until we get an answer. Okay. Next up, Turner's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I covered a number of these items, but I'll just run through them. 120 West Passaic, we talked about earlier, that was the two issues, the developers agreement, which was on the agenda later, and the contract with Boswell Engineering for the utility plan, which I think we resolved. Just keep in mind, there's two Boswell resolutions on there. We have to remove one and and adopt one tonight, so I don't adopt both of them.
Which one are we removing?
We're gonna remove the more cost, the higher cost, the $28,000 expense, and adopt the other one. 395 West Passaic, Mac Cali, and TFJ 120 Passaic. Those are our largest tax appeals that are pending. Mr. Rigatano addressed the tax appeal issues we have. They are the big ones, and there's some significant exposure there. I'm confident that they're not going to be an issue for the rest of this year, just because of the way the system operates, so we won't have to really look closely at them until next year. We did authorize our appraiser to do reports on those, so they're in the process of being done. I'll keep you advised as to how they progress. The Rochelle Railroad Avenue intersection we mentioned earlier, we're waiting for the final approval from the county on the maps in order to proceed with the takings. Basketball hoops, I'm not quite sure why that's on there. Again, I think
It's just miscellaneous correspondence.
just correspondence received, no real action at this point. 49 East Passaic, we just talked about, and the lease agreement and extension, that we still have the issue with the elevator that we have to address with the tenant upstairs, but the elevator work is ongoing. In fact, I think, is there a resolution on tonight?
Yes.
Exigency.
Yeah.
So once that work is done, we need to meet with the tenant upstairs. It's had a pretty dramatic impact on their business, so we're going to have to address it. Nothing we need to do right now because the elevator is still out of service. So we hope that will be completed shortly. And I think that's all I have now.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything on the correspondence that you would like to discuss?
I have one question, Mr. Rotolo, if I could.
Yes.
I know you sent out a memo today regarding 70 West Passaic Street.
Oh, yes.
Can you just give an update to the
Remind me, because
I know, it's reminded me.
there was a question about the status of the Villa Roberto site and the plan that had been approved previously, and it doesn't appear to be any activity. The developer or the property owner came in a while back. indicating they might want to change direction a little bit on the plan. It was going to be strictly a restaurant, Roma Cabana. I've now found that there is actually an application pending before the zoning board for a new design of that project that's going to include a restaurant.
Roll call.
Committeewoman Bonface?
Yes.
Committeeman Lavassi?
Yes.
Committeeman Bajnik?
Yes.
Mayor Casper?
Yes. Okay, 2019-170. Any discussion on that issue? Okay, seeing no further, can I have a motion to adopt?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Committeewoman Bonface?
Yes.
Committeeman Lavassi?
Yes.
Committeeman Bajnik?
Yes.
Mayor Casper?
Yes. Okay, 2019-175, right? That's the next one on the list?
Yes.
Okay, 175, this is authorizing an emergency contract for elevator repair. So this contract, and the reason why I was the one who requested this come off of consent, this is normally, I don't like doing emergency contracts at all, but the issue was that we received a bid for 32, I believe, $1,000 for the hooking up of the elevator to the alarm system, so that in case of an issue with, I guess, a fire, the elevator would not be able to be used, which is a safety issue as well. So the quote came in at $32,000. Our CFO, Lloyd Rigatano, who was here earlier today, took a look at that bill, and he made a phone call to another outfit that is used in a number of other towns, and that bill was reduced to approximately $8,000. So it was a significant savings, and having the right people taking a look at some of these issues can save us a fair amount of money. So I'd like to thank him for his keen eye and his ability to reach out to people that he knew to make sure that this issue got taken care of. So with that, I'd like to...
Briefly, I checked our elevator company, and they've been recommending that elevator get upgraded since 1996 when Mr. Manzella was here, Mr. Mariniello was here. He's spoken to everybody that's been running this and advising them that this elevator that was placed in service in 1966 needed to be upgraded because the parts, if it went down, was going to take a long time to get upgraded. And that cost us $32,000 in rent last year. And this year, it blew our budget by the shortfall again of $30,000. So this was easily avoidable if it was done years and years and years ago.
So do I have a motion? I'll make the motion to approve this expense.
I'll second.
All right, roll call.
Committeewoman Bonface?
Yes.
Committeeman Lavassi?
Yes.
Committeeman Bajnik?
Yes.
Mayor Casper?
Yes. Okay, 2019-177, which is the developer's agreement for 120 West Passaic Street, was pulled off consent. Let's have discussion on that. Who would like to go?
Well, we've had like a month to prepare for this meeting, so it's kind of annoying that a sizable document like this, I get it like the day before the meeting.
It was only adopted by the planning board Thursday. So I mean, it's.
Yeah, but I love reading, so if you give me the stuff before the weekend, I can read it cover to cover and have my questions ready.
The more boring, the better, right?
Yeah, more exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the more tasteless this stuff is, the better it is. So I would have liked to have more time to review this stuff and ask my questions. And I mean, Ken Joe isn't here, so I can't ask him any questions. But I mean, I tried to read this a little bit, come up with a little bit of commentary.
Just so you know, just by way of background, the developers agreement is to reflect the approvals granted by the board. So it's to require in a contract form that the developer comply with all the terms of the planning board, zoning board resolution, in this case, the planning board. What are the boards? in addition to comply with the recommendations of the board and the township professionals, establishes the amount of escrows and performance bonds, if any, that have to be posted and so forth. So that's what it is. It's generally done between the applicant and the planning board. Once that process is done, it comes to us and we give a seal of approval because we are a party to it as well. So that's why it took a long route and then got to us at the end, but that's really why.
And the only reason why it's coming to us essentially is because it's a redevelopment zone. If it
Well,
was,
no,
if it was
we
an
approve,
individual-
no, we approve all, we do approve. I mean, this is different because it's a redevelopment zone, but
Right, this, the reason why this is coming to us here is because of the redevelopment.
we actually, we always approve developers agreements. It just never really gets much discussion because it's basically between the board. It's usually just a consent item. This got a little bit more interest because it's a redevelopment zone and it's a big project, but we put our kind of seal of approval on all developers agreements. It's a way for us internally to monitor the obligations of the developer with regard to insurance, performance bonds, and things like that. So it always comes here, but you just don't really see it because it doesn't get a lot. I mean, you see it, but it doesn't get a lot of interest because it's usually projects that are not as significant as this one.
So, Mr. Bojnik, do you have, questions about the,
Well, I know, our new recycling coordinator wants to get all the reporting from all the recyclable materials off of that property. So I want to make sure that we put in here that they provide her with, I think it's 10B, report all the tonnage to her. So that we get the credits for it. And obviously we get the grant money back, the percent back from the state. Recycling tonnage grant. So that's money. Maintenance of the pond site. It would be nice to put in there that the thing needs to be relined, because obviously if it's losing water on the bottom, it's probably needs to be relined. And you know, this is a binding agreement, correct?
It is.
So once this is passed, that's pretty much it.
But keep in mind that the more comprehensive agreement that's going to have a lot of these things is the redevelopment agreement. That's a different animal. It's going to take a while to get that done. This is kind of a not a formality, but it's kind of a form agreement that we use. There's going to be a lot more meat to the redevelopment agreement because that's something directly between the township and the developer as opposed to carrying out the board's direction. So some of the tonnage and the recyclables that we've already discussed with them and with Jim, the stuff about maintaining the pond and exactly what they have to do, that was number one in the settlement of the litigation with the developer, and that's going to be covered in more detail in the redevelopment agreement. So we touched on it here, but you know, you're going to see a lot more on some of those, the nuts and bolts of the development as we go forward with redevelopment. So,
And why is it that the only thing that is recommended for the performance bond is 77 trees and shrubs, when there's a ton of items in this that could have been required to for them to have bonds for, including streets, pavement, gutter, curbs, sidewalks, street lighting, street trees, surveyor monuments, water mains, community septic, drainage structures, public improvements of open space, and grading necessitated by the preceding improvements.
So
there's a lot of items in there that could have been included in here. I'm just wondering why it's narrowed down from a gigantic list of really big items to just a couple trees.
Last year, or within the last 2 years, the municipal land use law was adopted to address the amounts that towns can require on performance bonds. It narrowed the scope of what you can require to be bonded to only off-site public improvements. So both our engineer and their engineer agreed, you know, their engineer produced the preliminary estimate, but Ken Joe reviewed it and he actually came up with virtually the same number. So
isn't Rochelle Avenue get paved end to end before this project gets done? I mean, Passaic Street, isn't Passaic Street gonna get paved?
Yeah,
and
that's
before
not
this
their,
gets done?
right, that's not their
But
responsibility.
outside the right of way, aren't they gonna have to wind up digging up the street to do connections in there?
If they do, they have to,
So that's not
Infrared
something,
them.
they have to repair the street.
but that's not something that you need to performance bond for.
Well, it's also not.
That's
our-
offset,
it's
isn't that
also not
off, isn't that
our-
offsite
It's
improvement?
also not our street. It's a county street. We're
Yeah,
not,
they-
we're not doing that improvement either. So that, any type of breakage into the street, it needs to be taken care of through the county and an agreement with them.
And the light is ours or that's the county's, Pepper Dam?
I don't know if the light signal, the signal.
I don't know, I assume it's county and it's on,
You can assume, but might be wrong.
yeah, but that's, anything, right, but then again, anything that can be, we can require a performance bond is built in there through the engineering estimates. That's how you calculate those numbers. So, you know, and again, if the law was amended within the past couple of years, it really
2018.
clamped down on what we're in 2018, you know, what we can require bonds for, because towns were frankly requiring too much in terms of bonds. So,
And this is mainly dealing with the
it's only the,
rear.
yeah, it's
portion
only the
of-
cube. It's only the
So,
cube, yeah.
so the approval was only on that portion of the property. So it has zero connection to the street. So.
Yeah, this,
it would be-
this agreement is only with regard to the self-storage. Yes. Yeah, it's only on that.
It was the whole site.
No,
Yeah, the title of it says, kind of seems to indicate.
yeah, no, I'm sorry, it should have been more clear. If you
Right.
look at the attachments, the resolutions, I think it's only that one limited section, the self-storage section.
So signaling and all that stuff would probably be located, included in the larger encompassing entire site plan.
And the board tried to get this through and get it signed by everybody, and hopefully tonight signed by the township, so we can see some progress over there. Everybody wants to see it move, the developer and the town as well. So this is the next step in that process.
Will this allow them to go forward and, the site, once this
It
is
will allow them to
taken care of?
start applying for their permits and start the overall project.
So within 60 days, remove the execution, removing all the stockpile material.
Okay. So I think that's a good thing. All right, any other further discussion? Okay, seeing none. I'll make a motion to approve that resolution 177. And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Committeewoman Boniface?
Yes.
Committeeman Lavassi?
Yes.
Committeeman Vajnik?
Yes.
Mayor Casimir?
Yes. Okay, so we're at 179, which is.
Yeah, 179 should be removed, right?
All right, sorry about that. All right, 180. Do we have any discussion on that? 2019-180, acknowledging the annual report of audit.
Make the motion.
All right, we have a motion. Okay, and a second. Roll call.
Committeewoman Boniface?
Yes.
Committeeman Lavassi?
Yes.
Committeeman Vajnik?
Yes.
Mayor Casimir?
Yes. Okay, now this is 2019-181. This is the hearing and adoption of salary ordinance 1147, which -19, which is 2019 salary orders for non-contractual employees. Every time we advertise this, it costs, I think it's $500. It's like $400 to $500. So if we are not going to have the votes to pass this tonight, I would recommend doing a motion to table until we can work out the details that are going to be acceptable to a majority of the township committee. You have heard multiple times my concerns about the salary ordinance, and I am sticking to the 1% increase, which I know a number of members of the committee disagree with, but if it needs a third vote and we want to get it done, that's my condition. So let's have a motion to open the hearing to the public. So who would like to make that motion? Okay, so Mark completed this word motion first, seconded by Mr. Lavasi. Mr. Bojnik, Mr. Lavasi.
Mike,
Yes.
why don't you take a vote on the salary ordinance?
Well, we are. We are.
Okay.
So we're, yeah,
Okay, all right.
so this is open to discussion as from members of the public
Okay.
or questions from the members of the public. So if you would like to discuss this issue, please come forward, state your name, address, and your concern. Okay. Seeing nobody from the audience, can I have a motion to close the hearing?
Make that motion.
Okay, okay, and a second. Roll call.
Committeewoman Bonifaz?
Yes.
Committeeman Lavasi?
Yes.
Committeeman Boccia?
Yes.
Mayor Casner?
Yes. Okay, now, we're back up here on the dais to discuss this, and I would like to see if there's any questions or concerns while we're here. Before we have a motion that either fails or passes, I want to make sure that we have votes, whatever, because every single time we do this, it's an additional $400 to $500. So,
I have a question.
sure.
This doesn't explicitly say here, but this is excluding fire prevention, correct?
Yes,
Until we have those conversations?
yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns, discussion?
You want to take a straw poll before you waste that?
Let's go down the line here.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we have the votes. So, do we have a motion to adopt?
I'll make the motion.
I second.
Okay, roll call.
Committeewoman Bonifaz?
Yes.
Committeeman Lavasi?
Yes.
Committeeman Boccia?
Yes.
Mayor Casner?
No. Okay,
Resolutions are complete.
resolutions are complete. Good stuff. All right, no administrators report unless you have something that you, okay. Committee reports, let's start with Mr. Bojnik.
Well, it was great to see everybody at the summer concert. I know that day was really hot. It was probably, what, 90 or so. But really cooled down in the afternoon. It was a good concert. 57 years of Beach Boys songs covered in like an hour and a half. That was pretty impressive. I've been looking at some ways to save a couple tax dollars. So I kind of looked into maybe if we could do a bulk purchase of home composting bins. I found GeoBin compost bins with shipping could cost about $22.50. They're pretty cool because they're adjustable in size, so you can narrow it down as much as you want, widen as much as you want. They're outdoor only. It should save us considerably on tipping costs. They had a spreadsheet online, which is kind of cool. So I'm trying to plug in what numbers I had for us. And I kind of think it might save about $22,000 a year if we had 500 residents, 500 households buy this. And assuming like 80% of those people, go through and fully use it, you potentially save about $22,000 in the tipping fees. So I want to see if maybe we can do an online post, maybe a poll or something on the Facebook page, or something like that to see if people want to chime in.
Something along the lines of, would you purchase a discounted?
Yeah, I mean, the full-size bins cost $150. They're really full-size ones. And those are not adjustable at all. They take a lot of space. So I figure if we can get people enough interest in it, maybe we can go ahead and do an order for it. Otherwise, the shared costs, maybe we could drop it down to $10 for resident costs and pick up the town and pick up a few dollars with it. It only comes to like $6,250. But based on the spreadsheet, you recoup it in like a little over 3 months.
Okay.
In the tipping fees.
How confident are you in your numbers?
I am pretty good because I have an Excel and I know my numbers.
Because I know you've criticized my numbers in the past.
Oh, yeah, they're funny.
Just take that your word that you.
It's a CPA.
I will give you, Mike, I give you my copy.
Fuzzy there.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do fuzzy, man.
I'm just saying.
So yeah, I kind of want to see if we can gauge some interest in this. And if you're worried about the smell of the food, you can actually toss this stuff into your freezer during the week and then just dump it in the bin on the weekend. So you don't have to collect it in the house and have it smell. I also kind of want to see us go forward with the tree replacement program. Since I've lived here, I've seen the damaged trees and the problem trees be removed, but rarely, if ever, have I seen a town tree get replaced. I think we should focus on replacing them with native trees that aren't going to outgrow their space or interfere with the utility lines above. We should have a form on our website for residents to report the problem trees, rather than how a resident came tonight to explain they had a problem tree.
Well, let me just say that the resident did not come here tonight to discuss that issue. I put it on the agenda, and it certainly is not the way to go about this, but I wanted to have a discussion up here. I thought that we would be able to discuss it and not involve the resident, just on the merits of the tree itself being damaging. You also indicated that it was extremely close to the curb, and it was probably in a position where it shouldn't be. I don't know if that's as a result of the curb being moved back at some point when they did some work on the street, but judging by the condition of the curb, it's been a while since that curb has been done. So there's a curb. It's in pieces though. So yes, it is not the preferred method to discuss that. And we should come up with a policy, especially when we're dealing with removal. We should be talking about replacement at the same time. If it's not on the same property, at least in areas where they would be justified, and also will not cause damage for the township and future problems, essentially cost for us to remedy. So that's certainly a concern that we can address.
And I just think that we can get more trees added in town. It's going to help improve our air quality. It's going to lower the temperature around us, adding more shade, and hopefully increase some of the biodiversity around us, which I know kind of lacking lately, unless you count the coyotes in the park.
I have regular goldfinches at the house.
Nice.
They're doing great.
Don't spread it.
I have groundhogs. Yeah. Those are. All right, so.
And that's it. And I just hope everybody enjoys their Labor Day weekend.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Bonifaz.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending. I kept an eye on that Terrace Avenue project. So I remember when the grant came in, and I looked on the DOT grant list in Rochelle Park. Everybody was in six figures, and Rochelle Park was only 91,000 on that grant. But when I went down Terrace Ave and I saw how bad the curbs were, being in the road construction business, I was like, you can't pave this road without replacing the curbs, aprons, and so forth. So I kept a good eye on it. I showed up after work and was watching, and I'm so happy that road came out as good as it did. And hopefully, slowly through the town, we can start working on streets where there are no curbs. And the next grant with the Boswell Engineering was for $182,000. So looks like going forward we'll be doing very well. But we included Brooks in that, so the bonding was a little bit more, but it shows you bond and you get something. When you have bonding and you don't see anything, it's when it really, it upsets you. But I just want to say I want to thank Boswell Engineering for helping us out on that one. Also, recycling. If you see this bin up here, we're going to start to recycle plastic bags. Not at your house. There'll be a bin at the municipal building here. Though also the school has offered to take a bin from us, and it is the produce and bread bags, grocery bags, the plastic yellow bags from ShopRite or whatever store, CVS, cereal box liners, ice bags, bags ice come in, Ziploc, other reclosable bags. When you buy water and the plastic bag over the case of water, that can be recycled. The newspaper sleeves, dry cleaning bags, film, plastic shopping bags, and bubble wrap. And they're gonna be recycled and then taken to a drop-off point, and they go to Trex to make the decking. And we will get, recycling this, we will be included in the collections with the recycling tonnage grant also. So that will add to that, bring in more money to the town, but recycling, and you know it's going to make Trex decking, so it's a good thing. The other thing going on, oh, yeah, the bins will be indoors, because they're it's right here out in
How many
front.
do you have?
They're cardboard.
How many do you have?
I think she can get as many.
I'm wondering for the building on each floor.
Wouldn't be a great idea, yeah. I'll contact the recycling
And I can
board
bring
here.
back to them.
Okay.
I like that.
Rochelle Park is having a shredding event on Saturday, September 28th, from 9 to 1, right here in the municipal parking lot, rain or shine. I'm right now going through all paperwork, trying to get a collection together to bring. And I have one of those big long leaf bags that I'm filling, so maybe everybody can do that. Today, I have a proclamation the mayor skipped, but when I read it, you'll know why. Proclamation designating August 26, 2019 as Women's Equality Day. Whereas the women of the United States have historically been denied the full rights and privileges, public or private, legal or institutional, which are available to male citizens of the United States. And whereas the women of the United States have united to assure that these rights and privileges are available to all citizens equally. And whereas the women of the United States have designated August 26th, the anniversary date, the certification of the 19th Amendment, which culminated a 72-year nonviolent campaign to extend the right to women to vote as a symbol of continued fight for equal rights. And whereas the women of the United States are to be commended and supported for their organizations and activities. And whereas women should be assured an equal voice and vote on policy that affects their rights and freedoms. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Rochelle Park recognizes the day in 1920 on which women of America won their right to vote has an opportunity to continue to work for equal rights of all citizens. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that it was left off of the agenda.
Yeah, was it?
It wasn't on the agenda.
Yeah, it came in last minute.
Okay.
So I'm not saying, but I'm just,
All right, are you saying that I purposely left it off the agenda?
I don't know. No,
All right, so
I'm the only woman sitting up here.
any,
Oh, Liz, sorry, Liz.
any other items
Stop
that
hiding.
you'd like to?
No, I'm good. That's all, folks.
All right, just along the lines of your Trex, the
Yeah.
Trex program, I was.
It's actually the recycling coordinator, Lisa, who,
Right.
and Jim were involved in this.
We,
I just pass it along.
I was out in Pennsylvania and in front of one of the supermarkets, they had a bin that was labeled with Trex and it had all this information on it. And it stated that if they would receive or collect from that township 500 pounds of plastic bags, Trex would donate a bench to the township to be used in one of the public parks. So let's see if we can get a bench out of this.
So don't drop your bags on the truck,
Yeah,
right? Drop
that's
them
right.
on
Wait until the offer gets a little bit better. No, it's,
Lisa told me when that bag is full, it will weigh 6 pounds. So we have to go.
Yeah.
We can do it. We can do it, Rochelle Park. We can do it.
I can fill that, I can fill that minimum count. All right, thank you very much, Ms. Watkins. Okay, Mr. Lavasi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I would just like to reiterate what Mr. Vonich said about the tree policy. I think it's important that we start discussions on this, and would like to have it added to the work session. The 11th, please.
We can do that. Let's,
If the agenda doesn't get too long that night, I'm gonna start a little bit
Well, at
late.
least let's start the discussion. I know, Mr. Mayor, you said you were looking for data from around surrounding towns, so if we can maybe get some of that.
right, and that's the stuff from surrounding towns. Hopefully we'll have ideas on keeping trees, but also the types of trees that they've been having success with in keeping it out of their sewage lines and from underneath their sidewalks. So I certainly will support that, and let's try and get it done sooner than the end of the, before the end of the year. I think we can get that done. Sure.
And in line with Ms. Boniface's proclamation, I would like to make a motion to appoint Justine Parisi to the Rochelle Park Fire Department. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Committee roll call?
Committeewoman Boniface?
Yes.
Committeeman Lavasi?
Yes.
Committeeman Vajnik?
Yes.
Mayor Casimir?
Yes.
Congratulations, Justine.
Okay.
I'm not done.
I know.
I have quite a bit.
You're on a roll.
Now, I have the report from the fire department. In July, they responded to 26 calls. The members logged over 380 man hours for the month, so thank you. You know, we have quite a few of you in attendance, so thank you. On Monday night, I attended a Swiftwater Rescue Awareness Training presentation that was held at the firehouse. All Hands Fire and Training conducted the presentation. There were around 25 attendees. 25 attendees representing the police department, fire department, OEM, CERT, and DPW. The presentation was about 3 hours long, and it went into great detail on many aspects of Swiftwater Rescue, so thank you to everyone that attended. As the fire commissioner, I recently held a barbecue for the fire department to show them my appreciation. It was really nice. It was a really nice time, and I'm happy that everyone came. I hope next year will be bigger and better. And then for some of our veterans, just a reminder that on September 7th, the American Legion is hosting their annual family picnic from 12 to 5:30. On September 22nd at 3 p.m. at the American Legion Pavilion, $1 Million Quartet the performance of the $1 Million Quartet by Tommy Walker. And for those who do not know, the quartet was Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, and Johnny Cash. It's $30 per person, beer and wine included. And there'll also be a food truck there if you're interested. And then this is a little bit of a getaway, but it's something I thought the public may be interested in. On the 28th, the American Legion is running a trip up to the Garlic Festival in Saugerties. There's approximately 2,500 vendors there, and all of them have something to do with garlic. The bus leaves the American Legion at 10 a.m. and returns at 5:30. It's $50, which includes continental breakfast, transportation. And that's it. That was a mouthful.
I'd hate to be on that bus.
Yeah, I'm going back.
The good thing is that everyone's going to smell the same on the way back. Yeah.
No vampires. And then I just want to wish everyone a happy Labor Day. Make sure the families are safe. Thank you for coming. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. So, as mentioned before, we had a successful summer concert. We had a ton of volunteers from the township, from the community, also from the police, the fire, and the ambulance were on hand. So thank you very much for your hours of dedication and being there for the residents. It certainly was a hot day, and I was extremely concerned about the heat at night, but it actually turned out to be probably one of the best nights of the summer as far as temperature. So I know it was well attended, and people did have a great time when they were there. So we do have a new Eagle Scout in town, Mr. Willie Xavier Sanchez received his Eagle, and his project was to work with the Northeast Region Scout Museum. He created a documentary on the foundation of the museum. He also created a website for the museum itself, and he had a big presentation as to that process. I believe a number of members of the committee were at the presentation. I think it was earlier this year, or maybe it was earlier this year, right? I know that he had participation from members of the committee, and also at the event with me was Committeeman Warren as well. So with that, I just want to wish everyone a happy Labor Day. And what, you want my report? That's, those are notes.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. All right, so nothing further for my report. I'll probably have something next month, a little bit more intense. Attorney's report, anything?
I think I covered everything there.
Okay, clerk's report. Okay. All right, motion to open the public.
Make a motion.
Second.
All right, all's in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. We're open to the public. Please come forward, state your name and address to the committee and your concern.
Marshall King Chestnut Street. I just had a couple of questions, comments actually. On behalf of the tree project that was going on, just have a suggestion that I think it's great that the town officials are coming up with different ideas, potentially root blocking and stuff like that. But my only suggestion would be that we have a subject matter expert be involved in that before we just go with, I think it might, or, could. I don't know any more about it than anybody else, I'm sure, that's in the room, unless they want to come up and speak about it. But it just doesn't seem to me that a well-rooted old tree, if you cut a large root and you put one of those composite pieces of material, it's going to stop that thing from growing. That's just my 2 cents. The other thing is with 395 West Passaic Street, I just want the town council to be aware that I was unaware that they had filed any kind of an appeal. Maybe a packet going out to each department head would be a wise thing to do for any other prior approvals. 395 West Passaic Street has been under a fire watch for 8 days, 24 hours a day. They have a non-functioning sprinkler system. They also will owe the town money for fire watch that they've declared with the proper documents. So just make sure that before you grant any of that, you might want to use that as leverage to make sure that the fire watch is paid, which should be paid anyway. But in this matter, I would say it's important. And they were also fined $5,000, which they paid, but they have an outstanding $10,000 fine. So maybe just letting all department heads know about things, checking on prior approvals to see before you grant any kind of appeals might be something that you should do, because if I wasn't here listening to this, I wouldn't know, and that potentially the town is without all that money. The penalties is just one aspect of it, but then not getting the building repaired and the people that occupy it back in service is the bigger problem. So they're under fire watch because they have a sprinkler system that's over 20 years of age. They were told for 2 years. We've worked diligently for almost 13 months to try to resolve the matter with them doing their fire watch, and they couldn't be trusted because they were playing video games on their phones downstairs to people that were employed to do it. So I mandated that they had to use our fire watch guys. And the owner comes and checks on them every day, which is good, because he wants to know he's paying. So he's had no problem with our fire watch, but the 4 people who worked before, he wanted them gone. He was more than happy to accept the option that we gave him.
That's a 24-hour watch?
It's currently under 24 hours, should be expired by 6 o'clock tomorrow night if they get the proper testing and inspection done to prove that there's no obstruction in the pipes, because they had to replace 298 sprinkler heads.
That's all?
Yeah, so my point is really just like, maybe we can get some kind of packet of prior approvals on certain aspects. Maybe this is a consideration where you're going to grant appeals or any kind of monies back, that there's no outstanding issues that are going on that we might be able to hold them responsible for.
Anything else?
That's it. Oh, I'm sorry, one other thing.
And that's all was about the sprinkler heads, not
Yeah,
about
no,
your,
actually,
your
that was,
time up here.
I only have one other item that I just have a question. I've been requested for about 2 years to provide reports, monthly reports. How come my monthly reports are never read to the public? They have been provided every single month to Mr. Davidson.
We can, would you like them?
3 different reports. I just want to know why the report's so important if nobody wants to know what's going on. Is it just mandating me to do it?
Why circulate the committee?
Yeah.
You're on file.
But I just find it ironic that all other departments their reports are always read. The fire prevention seems to be that read at its stepchild. It's not.
Not all reports are always read into the.
Police department.
Police report,
Police,
that's not read.
court,
Okay, so I guess the question boils down to how come only those 3 reports get read every month? And I'm asked to provide reports.
Are you talking about the reports that are on this list, the health department?
Yeah, like all the things that are done, nobody knows that we do hundreds of inspections every year.
We don't read those, but we can add reports
I think
that
it's
are on
important
file.
for the public to understand that
Absolutely.
there's actually more going on than just what's said.
All the information that's in there is okay for public display?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're gonna add the reports, for all departments on file unless there's, any,
Confidentiality, yeah.
personal or confidential.
I mean, I would never provide anybody's names or any kind of numbers that are not, permissible by law.
I might want to just run it by the department heads before you post those, just to make sure they.
Yeah, I think every one of them should have to report back to you and tell you what might be a conflict.
If there's any
Yeah.
personal.
In the case of mine, everybody wants to know how many miles I put on those cars. But, how many inspections are done.
We can include those.
Everybody wanted it, but nobody wants to hear about it. It's just asking me to do it, so I kind of feel it's futile, and it's just another thing on top of all the Oprah reports. That's all I'm doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other member of the public? Mr. Quinn.
I guess I qualify. Ed Quinn, 19 Peak Street. I just want to say that you were speaking about the group issue. I'm going to quote, everybody is a politician. And so when I make a criticism, I'm criticizing everybody. If you make a decision, you affect the future. I'm talking about the root situation. The town was celebrating that they got a good buy on trees and they beautified Rochelle Park. Now, this is in the 30s, so it was a long time ago. But they bought swamp maples. That's why they got a good buy. And guess what swamp maples love? Water. And where's your water? When I grew up, it was septic systems, so it went to the septic systems. When we put the sewer lines in, it went to the sewer lines. And guess what? When they expanded, they lifted the sidewalks. I lived on Chestnut Street for over 50 years. And all sidewalks were lifted by the swamp maples. Now, the town did replace them. We had a Chestnut Street on Chestnut Street, which is probably a rare thing, but most of them were probably spruces. I don't know if the town ever, I think they changed because they changed, I live on Peak Street now. They changed one of my trees because it lifted the sidewalk. They took it out, I think it was an oak. But even the tree that they planted has lifted the sidewalk. Now, I'm not complaining about my sidewalk, but I can see it's lifting because roots grow and they expand. So I would think that everybody's got this problem. I do have an oak next door to me that has lifted the sidewalk. The town has fixed it twice, and it is already up a couple inches already. I'm not complaining about it, but it needs to be looked at. So it's an ongoing program. I love your idea about the barriers because that stops the roots. But roots are going to grow under the barrier. We know that. Hopefully they stay down there. So think about what you're doing before you act. Obviously I'm talking about other things, other politicians. Rochelle Park used to be twice as big as it is today when it was in the Midland Township. We wanted streetlights. The people on the other side of the trolley line didn't want streetlights. So they gave it away, and now it's piranhas. I don't know where the water was, but since it was Midland Township, I'm guessing it was the Midland Avenue. But I always heard, when I was a kid, that it was Century Road. But I don't know. I never cared about where the border was, but we lost that property. And then the politicians in town gave away the county park because that was a cost to the town. Well, guess what? The county slammed us again because they have maintenance trucks, they put a road in, they put a bridge in, it looks beautiful, but we're paying to maintain it. Another good move by our politicians at that time, but it cost the town money. Every time we make a decision, we made a decision to get rid of the Arcola pool. Now, we weren't part of that, but there was something going on because we gave the Rochelle Park swimming pool that property. So somebody washed somebody's hands someplace, I would suspect, I don't know. Okay, but we gave that town, which was the old sewer pipes, we used to dry feces on that concrete. Now we play basketball or hockey on it today. But that's what we used to do with that. That was a disposal plant before we pump it over to the Little Ferry. Things we make a decision today affect us in the future. We put Garden State Plaza in, because that was our old, I mentioned this before, it was Eustace Dairy. Before that, it was an orchard, okay? It was a peach orchard. That's why we built the train station in 1872. Those kind of things happen. Think about what you're doing. I agree with you. You get a piece of paper and say, sign off on it.
Give me 75 pages and I got it yesterday.
I understand the priorities, if I'm running an organization, but you can't do that to somebody that needs to read it and understand it and know what he's doing, rather than saying, I vote yes. Thank you.
Okay, any other member of the public?
Good evening, Heather Lund, Terrace Avenue. I just wanted to give a shout out to Jim Schmunk during our construction on Terrace Avenue. He made it very easy for the residents with any questions that we had. He kept us informed and really turned what could have been a disaster into a very easy project, and just, a great big help to the residents. On my second question, I guess it would be to you, Mr. Kashmir. Are you still talking about that pilot program with SMB Bank?
We have not discussed the pilot program, but I think they are coming forward with a plan to use that site. So I'm sure that discussion will come back.
Okay, so there is ongoing discussions with...
Just the other day, I remember hiring an expert that was going to assess the impact of what a pilot would be on that site.
Right.
That was actually last year, and that resolution has expired. I'm not going to ask you to pull it up. I know you.
I'm just saying I can't remember his name.
Beneke. Right.
Beneke, yeah.
So if we go forward, we will have an expert come in and do that assessment before we move forward with anything else.
So you haven't had any meetings with them?
They
They came to a meeting, a public meeting, but no, they did contact us about a meeting, not at a township committee meeting, but meeting with the subcommittee, the development subcommittee. And we're gonna trying to put that together for next week sometime,
Okay.
just to see where they stand.
Okay, just a thought, for you to be involved, you're making a decision to actually get rid of the diner and giving them tax credits so that they can develop. So to me, to go and take people's jobs away, I don't think that's really the township that should be involved in that. They should stand on their own merit. If they want to develop, let them come in and develop on their own merit. We should not be giving them tax credits to take away people's jobs.
I 100% agree. I would actually, coming from the guy who purchased a historic house in town, I would like to see the diner still exist in Rochelle Park, as well as the bank building. I think that bank building is iconic of a traditional bank, but there are some things that we can and some things that we can't do. That diner, as far as I know, could potentially be moved a little bit, but one of the things that's big about this project is that we have the potential to realign Central Ave. And I know that was a discussion from the very beginning of that project, that we would like to see that lined up with Lots Lane.
Right.
The reason why we want to do that is to eliminate one of the turns of the lights, which would make that intersection a lot more efficient. So if we can do all of those things, those certainly will be discussed with it. And it is in a redevelopment zone.
Right, I understand.
So the
that.
township committee has the responsibility to actually review these proposals and see what we can get to proceed
I
with those
understand all
processes.
that, I do, I understand all that. Why can't you do a builder's agreement to say, going forward, whatever you're doing, why can't they realign it, or, you know, just like you're saying with 120, you're doing a builder's agreement, here's what you need to do, why can't you just do that?
That's all part of the process, and we are at stage 0, essentially. They have a concept, but now they're pushing, I guess, a more detailed plan of what they want to do.
Right.
So that will be step 1, and we will comment on what we see as potential winning elements of that plan and issues with that plan that we can try to address.
Just because it's in a redevelopment zone does not mean that you need to give them cash incentives or tax incentives.
Of course not.
No,
Right, right,
we did right across the street.
right.
We did not give any pilot program or anything like that.
Right, they're coming to you and saying, we would like to have this incentive. And again, they're $1 billion company. So for you to even think that you should be doing that I don't
Well,
understand.
I mean, the misunderstanding about a pilot program is that at day 1, we're giving them an incentive or a discount on their taxes. That isn't always true. If they knock down the buildings and that property is vacant, their assessed value of that property could be reduced. So what we can do is we can identify an agreeable amount between the township and the developer to immediately resume payments of some amount that is agreeable between the two parties, or as many parties as needed. The reason why you do that is so that you have cash up front while the project is being built. It also allows the developer to go into their finances and identify what their true costs will be. So if those are some of the things that we should assess, we should take a look at, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a loss. It may mean that we, in the immediate run, may have something a lot more than what we're thinking.
From what I've seen, it's always a disadvantage to the municipality because just in the long run, for what you're getting up front, you lose in the back end, just from what I've seen.
Which agreements are you?
You know what, I've just from reading, with all the pilot programs, there's pros and cons, but there's more cons than there are pros. And when you get your reports, will we be able to see them from your experts?
Yeah, I think we'll have actually open discussion on that. I don't think that's not something that is
Wouldn't necessarily
privileged.
Right.
So that would probably be discussed.
And these reports are paid for whoever you're hiring, so we can't see them?
No, well, that's not necessarily true that they're hiring them.
No,
We hire them,
hiring
We
them.
hire them.
Right, that's what I said, and then we
And-
can't see the reports, we're paying.
You said you can see them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the additional thing is that even if we're hiring experts, a lot of those costs are passed back onto the developer. So depending on certain criteria, they can be included in the redeveloper's agreement to recoup a lot of that cost.
Okay. I have just one more question. The taping of the meetings, has any feed been cut from the tapings? Has Wi-Fi been shut off? What's going on with the tapings?
I think we're taping right now.
It's currently working.
do you have a concern about?
Last month you had 8 minutes and that was it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the administrator addressed that there was a Wi-Fi outage, I think.
Okay.
So, but the meetings, the official recordings of the meeting exist. So if you want to go back and listen to the transcript of the meeting,
Okay.
those are definitely.
I just was a little confused because I know the last time I asked about S&B, I had questions and you answered me and I wasn't quite sure what you said. Sometimes when we're listening to you, we're thinking about our next question. So I went back that night to listen to the comments and there was no comments from anybody in the public.
Okay.
The meeting existed. So that's why I asked if the tapes are manipulated, what's going on?
I don't think they're manipulated. You can ask the clerk if she manipulates the tapes.
So you're playing with our tapes.
No, I'm actually avoiding a spider right now.
Oh, no.
But I'm not.
The clerk is responsible for keeping those recordings and making sure they are intact and pristine. So if you would like a copy of the audio from last meeting, so you can hear my velvety tone.
I just wanted to know. I just was kind of thinking it was strange that happened. So I'm glad to hear that.
I went over it with Bob and I was trying to figure it out, and he thinks that the Wi-Fi just, whatever, it might have just dropped even just for a second, but it didn't reconnect.
Okay.
So I was looking at it with him, and it's pretty new computer, so it doesn't even have an Ethernet port in it.
Okay.
And there's no Ethernet port in there. So I was trying to even see if he could find out if we could just even run a hard line all the way across through suspended ceiling, so you could just hard line it in. This way there is no drop.
Right. Okay, good to know. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any other member of the public? Spider's coming down this way. So if you see people keeping the lights on, that's,
Animal running back there?
You can't kill it, you just have to let it go.
all right.
Okay.
You can't, it's bad luck.
You can't.
First, from the library, I just wanted to make everybody aware, I know it's been posted on their website, but for anybody who's not aware, the library from September 5th to the 20th will be closed for remodeling. We had a lot of exciting things that we hope to do to update the library. It has not been updated since it started. So we're very excited about that. Once it's done, we'll be announcing a grand reopening, grand remodeling, whatever you want to call it, date for everybody to come see it. People will be able to take out books at any of the other area libraries, so that while this library is closed, you can go with Paramus, Saddlebrook, Maywood, any area libraries to return books and also, to take anything out, of course. So, it's not very far to the Maywood Library, Saddlebrook, or Paramus, they're all close enough. And if anybody's requesting something on the Buckle site, make sure you change it so they don't deliver it to Rochelle Park, but they deliver it to one of the area libraries because they won't be making deliveries here for those few weeks. So it's just a drop-down window where you just select whichever library you want. And the other thing, I just had a question. With all the construction, not business, homes there's a lot of construction going on around town, and I know they've changed the rules on certain permits, but it seems a lot of people are doing a lot of stuff without any permits in their windows. Is there people that are checking this, or how is that being watched at all?
Well, I mean, one of the things that was great about having permits is that you could go to the site or travel and identify a location that had some activity, and then you could go and check on it if it had a permit. The amount of activity that we are having, depending on the scope of what they're doing, may or may not require that same permit. So additional investigation even before you can say, hey, does 114 have a permit pulled for their work, which was fairly easy to do. Now we don't have to do that as strictly as in the past. So
I mean, a lot of people doing construction on their homes. Is it just sort of like, well, some people may not know they need to get a permit. Some people may just be,
well, now there's a whole bunch of confusion because almost everything in the past needed some type of permit process.
But is there anybody checking, like, that if you see Some of these homes you drive by and you see a lot of major construction. I'm not saying that people don't have a permit, but, you know, like you said, there used to be something in the window, and you just kind of wonder if there are or if they're not. You know?
We can have a little bit more detailed process. Maybe we can bring in, well, the construction.
Oh, it's just money that the town's
official
losing in
or
permits, that's all.
Inspector, yeah, inspector, just to kind of discuss what the process is, or we'll have more information.
Well, I mean, anytime we did work, we got permits, but it's money that the town's losing from all these people that are not getting permits. That's all.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the DCA last year, when they exempted a whole bunch
Right, the
of
roofs and
things
stuff.
on there, I'm sure the contractors probably took advantage of that and probably
So,
giving word of mouth saying, you know, the DCA said, we don't need this.
Oh,
You don't need that
tell us
permit
that,
anymore.
you know, you're only supposed to have so much property, land coverage, and I mean, you see people, their entire backyard is not covered with not grass, let's say, or people that are
They get away
redoing
with the
society.
pavers, they get away with the pavers because they're not considered permanent though.
But I'm just saying, somebody should be, you know, you have people that are adding things to their homes, put new sewer lines, and I don't know if you need permits for these things, but I'm just thinking it's money that the town could be losing, that's all.
I agree, and just from those changes in state requirements, we're down like $90,000 in the fees.
That I heard when you mentioned.
Yeah, so that's a significant amount.
But I mean, is there anybody
We,
looking?
we have some changes. We have some changes coming up in, probably in that department, so we'll have some discussions on exactly the process of how they are being checked off.
Okay. I mean, I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble, I'm just thinking.
No, I mean, but if you think about it, if somebody's going in and they're doing some work that doesn't require a permit, and then all of a sudden, oh, we could add another outlet, you know, here in this section, maybe that won't go reported because it's
I'm not
smaller.
thinking of people, you know, that, I'm thinking of people that you drive by a house and you see major.
Dumpsters in the
Yeah.
driveway, got a huge.
Right,
I mean, if
dumpsters,
there's
a dumpster in the driveway, you know, bulldozers in the front yard, you know.
Most of those generate a stop by officials that are going through town. Most of them.
Well, I can think of at least 5 houses that. Me too.
So 5 houses with dumpsters that are not.
Or bulldozers, or major, yeah, nothing, I mean, they may not need them, but I'm just saying.
Right next door to her house.
Yeah. And that is a different area than I do, so.
If you have a list of, I'm not gonna ask you to do it on
They could email the building
record,
department.
but if we can.
Be able to do it online.
I won't, because they go, my neighbor did that, and it created a problem, because they were told they were anonymous. And the inspector went to people's houses and said, I'm here because your neighbor across the street said there's a problem.
So
So I'm just saying that,
No, you used to be able to put it on the website.
we will,
Mike, you said it's no longer on the website.
Oh, that was a service that was costing, I forget, $2,000
Whatever it
for the year.
was, you used to be able to record it then.
Yeah,
that was Gov,
like GovPilot thing.
GovPilot.
Yeah, I think we just mentioned it.
Which was actually a great program, but nobody was using it to the amount that we should have.
Nobody's looking at it.
So I'll send word over to the building department that we need to drive around, and any site that has a dumpster in front of their house will get a visit, just to see what's going on.
Good.
That's nice. If 49 East Passaic Street were zoned for 2-family, you would, as of now, you would more than likely have had at least a couple of bidders tomorrow. I was there at the open house, and that was one of the big concerns of people. And one of them realized that they'd have to put a lot of money in it, more than the minimum bid, in fact. So they would have been way over $1 million. They're familiar with older homes, they're familiar with historic homes, and but they would have needed to have it as 2-family to make it work. The other thing I'd like to mention, completely different. On township property, in front of my house, there's a serious health condition, and I'd like to know who to report it to and how. So I'll be contacting by phone tomorrow to get that information.
Okay, so it's something that you don't want to address current?
Oh, this is something that needs to be addressed.
No,
It
but-
needs to be addressed by the town. I can't do it. I'm not permitted to address it. I can't correct it. I'll discuss it privately with whoever the health officer or whoever you're directing me to. But I'd like to say in public, I'm reporting this. So any liabilities that occur belong to the township, not me.
Okay, can you, after the meeting, would you come up and address it with our township attorney?
Oh, I'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other member of the public?
Good evening, Jim Bowen, 25 Marina Street. Couple of questions. Before the project on State Street here started, we were required to replace the handicapped access on the sidewalks, if I remember correctly, before the project started. We were required to front out the money, and then I believe the county was going to reimburse us. Has that been done?
With the county? No, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. Maybe Bob would know, but.
Okay. Second part of this question is how come we had to do it and Maywood didn't? Anybody?
I don't
I don't know what goes on in
Maywood, I don't know what Maywood's agreement with the county was.
Well, as I remember correctly from the meetings in the beginning of the year, the agreement was either do it or we're not paving it.
Well, I still don't know what the agreement with Maywood was. But
Well,
prior to
why
our
would we have a
conversation-
different agreement than Maywood? It's the same street.
That's a very good question. Why would we have a different proposal or an agreement from another town? I do not know why.
Well, I would think at this point, right now, we would know whether we got our investment back or not. Or if they plan to get our investment back. I mean, we're strapped for money in town, and yet we had to put this money out to get this project done, which it needed to be done. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying anything against it, but it needed to be done. But again, we had to lay out the money for something that they wanted done.
Jim, Mr. Davidson would not have the answer for that, I'm almost positive. Yeah.
All right, I have another question, and it refers to what's been going on across the street. Back in June, I think it may have been, maybe May's meeting, work session meeting, I spoke to Mr. Melfi about conditions across the street. In particular, the old tree stumps and logs and what else have you was laying over there that they weren't supposed to take out to begin with. That stuff is still laying there. We are now in the middle of hurricane season. 8 years ago today was Irene. 7 years ago was Sandy. Now, although we weren't impacted by that, that was a huge impact to the area. All it's going to take is for floodwaters to come up and float one of those things down in front of the bridge, and we got problems. Mr. Melfi's response to me was that they were under a stop work order, and he was very limited as to what he could do. Is there any way we can push this along to at least get that stuff out of there?
That's that.
Yeah, we approved the developers agreement tonight.
It was in
as well,
here.
so.
It was in here, stockpiled material on site. Upon execution of the agreement, the applicant shall provide for its review, the list of volume materials currently stockpiled on the site, and list of volumes of current material to be reused for the development of a self-storage facility. If the township determines the volume of material to be reused on the site is an acceptable volume to be stockpiled, then applicant must have all other material removed from the site within 60 days of execution and provide proof to the township.
So 60 days from today?
Yep. Should be, according to this.
Should be. Are we going to be able to monitor that they're going to get somebody on site to do this?
Yeah, I think the agreement is pretty clear as to what we expect from the township, and we will proceed with making sure that they adhere to that agreement. If they don't adhere to the agreement, then I'm sure we can open up a discussion as to penalties or what we see as an acceptable remedy for that situation. I think they're going to be moving quickly on this property to get this done.
All right, now 60 days from today, that brings us almost to the end of hurricane season. Is there anything that can be, I mean, at least to get that stuff out of there? I mean, if we can give a call, say, this is a problem, we've had these problems in the past, you know, can you at least expedite that?
We have had those discussions with them, and they're anxious to get the project moving too. So we needed to do this step. Now that we've done it, they're gonna be anxious to move forward. So I'm sure it's in their best interest too, is the letting a property that has that kind of value just sit there doesn't make sense for them either. So I'm quite sure just the practical reality of a project like that is gonna make it go forward, you know, more quickly now that we've gone through this step. So it'll happen because it's in their best interest too.
One other thing, the issue with, I forget what the name of the program was, but the issue with SME Bank and Diner, the pilot program, that's the word I'm looking for. I brought this up before, I'm gonna bring it up again. It's as far as this program and what they want to build there and putting up more retail space, I do not see that as a good plan. I mean, we have retail space sitting empty in this town. We now have more retail space empty with Prestige Auto having left that property. We now have more retail property. We have 2, 3, I believe it is, standalones that are completely empty. And now we want to put more in. Paramus can't even rent the retail property they have. Go up and down Route 17 and see the amount of empty retail space they have. And we're putting more on Route 17. I do not see this as a good project for the township. I just don't. I know it's a redevelopment zone. I know we're paying for the sins of our fathers for making that a redevelopment zone. Should have never happened. There was no reason for that, in my humble opinion. Okay, but again, I urge you to proceed very cautiously with that program.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to close? Motion. All right, and a second? Second. Okay, roll call.
Committee Longoria? Yes. Committee Millavasi?
Yes.
Committee Najarian?
Yes.
Mayor Casper?
Yes. Okay, just, everyone, thank you very much. Yes, I know we're not done yet, but thank you very much for your cooperation with my first request as to keeping it civil up here. So thank you very much. So with that, can I have a motion to adjourn? Okay. All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Motion carries. 11 o'clock.
I've suggested, can we take this and put it out in the link? So we don't have to far. I mean, we don't have to-